Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. Once again, filling in for Dave Scott. Is going to be an awesome show tonight. We have Jason Breshears with Archaix. Humanity, are we trapped in a false reality? We're going to get into talk about that, plus a whole lot more. Let me go ahead and see who has come in for the night. Courtesy of Race Fan. Race Fan says, and I believe Race Fan with the gold, Eternity Eternal with the silver, and Kitty Catty Whack with the bronze. Appreciate you guys all coming on in bright and early. Thanks for coming in. Let me see who else has snuck up in here. Let me try to get everyone before. I don't know if I'm going to get to everyone. We'll see, though. Necessary Dialogue. Thanks for coming in. Andrew Knows Trucking. Thanks for coming in. T-Bone. Thanks for coming on in. Road Flare. Robert Lamoth Jr. Thanks for showing up. Frankie B. Let's see, Tamont Man, Mel WD40 getting us lubed all up in for the show. Miss Catherine Jones, appreciate you showing on up. Who else has come in for the night? Lars Jansen, thanks for coming in. Who else has shown up? Let me try to get down the list. I won't make it, guys. I know I won't. Fast Emmy, thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you showing up. Eddie Avila, thanks for coming in. Thanks for showing up to the show tonight. I saw who in the Tarnation. Tarnation, thanks for coming on in. Thanks for showing on up tonight. Who else is coming in? The Doug Shelby. Appreciate you coming on in. I got to start the podcast side right about now. So let's get ready to do this here. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned. You're down to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight, we'll be broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives absolutely free, 100% free, by going to youtube.com/@spacedoutradio. The options are endless there. Also, don't forget, you can follow us. You've always been able to follow us on Instagram and X at Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Radio Show. Also, our website, spacedoutradio.com. The options are endless. You can stay up to date with SWR Newswire. Get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, rock out to the man that you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Doll, and oh so much more. Once again, Rob G, After Hours Radio Show Edition, standing in for Dave Scott tonight. He will be back on Monday, and we're going to have a fantastic show. You can best believe that. Once again, Jason Breshears with Archaix is in the building. Humanity, are we trapped in false reality? For hours 1 and 2, and then hour 3, Steve Stockton tells untold missing person mysteries. And I don't know, I'm feeling kind of a way tonight. Maybe some unapologetically, Mr. Rob G, because sometimes it calls for that. Sometimes you got to speak your mind, and I might just do that tonight, right? Let's go ahead and get ready to jump right on into the show and bring in our guest, Jason Breshears. Jason, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Kind of digging that intro. That's all right.
All right, I do appreciate you as well. Now, I just want to go over this real quick so everyone is versed. If they haven't heard of you, I mean, you have a successful channel. You're doing awesome over there. Check out a live stream. You were killing it over there earlier today, speaking your word. So you're with Archaix, or Advanced Research of Chronological History of Artificial Intelligence X, is about the history of the human race trapped in this simulacrum, this false reality, a copy of a real universe and the tyranny of AIX. Archaix documents the movements of AIX in the past and reveals what Artificial Intelligence X will do next. That's deep right there. That's deep. Definitely want to go ahead and start out with getting to know you. How did you even start out with this? Was there some sort of connection with the phenomena, or how did you end up being led to where you're at today?
Well, first I want to say hi to your community. I've been on many podcasts. Probably I'm in my 320th, somewhere in that range of podcasts. I've been a guest on about 200 times, but I don't believe I've ever come into a chat where I didn't know somebody. I see WD-40 and J Truth Seeker, T-Bone, Andrew and Gnome's Trucking Express, Amanda's Crazy Life channel. I don't know anybody here. It's kind of blowing my mind. It's like, wow, here's a whole community that I've never come in contact with. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah,
yes, sir, it is.
Yeah, first of all, my YouTube channel is about 5 years old, but my research goes back over a quarter of a century. And my first publishing contract was 2006 for nonfiction reference books. And I've got 13 books published since then, but I've written over 26, 27. It really kind of depends on how you break them down, because I have some books that are over 1,000 pages and others that have been broke down that were 500 and 600 pages that my publisher turned into smaller books. So it's kind of hard to keep up. The number keeps changing as more get released. I never stop writing. I'm a writer and a researcher first, but I started releasing my data sets on YouTube about 5 years ago. And I don't know, man. It's just I kind of took off. It took 300 videos before I even had 1,000 subs on YouTube. So I was really just concentrating on writing, and YouTube was just an interesting hobby to me while I was doing other things. And then I got interviewed on a podcast by a guy named Jimmy Jones of EOTT, Jimmy James, Everything on the Table. And that led to a podcast with Logan of Decode Your Reality and Santos Bonacci on the Syncretism Society. And after that, I started climbing so fast. About 2.5 years later, I'm at where I'm at now. I think I got about 177,000 subs, but I've spread to several other platforms, and it's just about the research. It's just my venue is all about providing data sets that have source back materials, because I don't need you to take my word for anything. I need you to be able to go to the original source and see that I'm not misquoting them. This is exactly what we find in the historical record. And you asked me a very specific question. How did I derive this conclusion that we live in a construct? And it's a convoluted answer, but to abbreviate it to its lowest common denominators, I'm going to have to tell you that my research bibliography is over 3,500 nonfiction reference books. Some of them are very extensive, and my published books show this bibliography. And it is after reading so much core material in the history of the world and putting it all together in a single chronology. This is one of my books here called Chronicon. It is nothing but 1,055 pages of nothing but chronological material, year by year, 7,000 years of human history, everything you can possibly believe, chronologically organized, showing you exactly what year it was on 41 different calendars. So once this was done, it was inescapable. There are cycles, there are epicycles, there are systemic resets. They have predictive value. There is no way that the true history of the world could have ever unfolded in the way the history books say so. So it is mathematically precise. It is too incisive. And the more I began to study the phenomenon, the more it revealed itself to me. And I realized that even our histories are all post-reset constructions. There is something resetting the field. And when it resets the field, it provides artificial versions of history to cover up its misdoings. And there are men and materials being removed from this construct that we call reality. And these acts of something on the outside are covering up this activity in the form of natural disasters. So I know this sounds like an outlandish theory. I'm totally aware of how I sound to a novice, someone who has never come into contact with this meticulous data. But on my channel, this is what I do. I release these data sets for people to make up their own minds. I have probably close to 600 or 700 charts, chronological charts now that show all this. And I have thousands and thousands of fact checkers, because many people have been trying to find some chink in the armor, trying to show that, man, Jason can't be correct. And with 13 published books, my research is pretty much out there. It's out there for everybody to see. But I literally have 100,000 pages of free material that I have PDF downloads. You can access them on my website, archaix.com. You could literally read for the next 3 or 4 years just off my free material. And it was just the amalgamation of so much data that made me conclude, brother, this ain't real. The only thing real here is you and I. All this is a mathematical construct, and it's easily demonstrable in the historical record.
Wow, that is awesome. And I'd love to definitely dive into that. And I put that as something to come into a little bit later. I do want to know about chronology, right? I know you touched on it a little bit, but what exactly is it, and how does what you're doing currently revolve around that world?
It's a really good question, and we have a real problem scholastically, because universities, because our educational system is now compartmentalized. It is so compartmentalized that it is almost impossible to approach anything from a multidisciplinary approach. It's almost impossible now. Everybody is too specialized in their. We have paleobotany, paleobotanist, archaeologist, regular botanist. We have geologist, and then geology is subcategorized into many subcategories. I don't have them memorized, but we have so many different types of specialists that no one really knows anything anymore. They're too specialized, and the cross-disciplinary approach is frowned upon by establishment science. One of the things we have missing in historical studies is chronology. There are no courses in universities on chronology. Instead, we're forced to listen to those who pontificate and claim to be experts in their field. And when they give us dates, we're just supposed to accept them. But when we go by the establishment dating and putting the world back together in some type of cohesive format that we can comprehend sequentially, nothing they're telling us makes sense. But chronology is a science. We do have the ability to go into Hittite cuneiform records and find date monikers that tell us exactly, in the 23rd year of the reign of King Hattusis, the sun was obscured by unknown means, and the moon turned red as rocks fell from the sky. Now we have something to work with. All we have to do now is compare and find out, when was the first regnal year of King Hattusis of Hatti. Once we isolate that, we can find out what his contemporaries are. The chronologists will find the dates on Mayan steels and Olmec pillars. We'll find all these date monikers spread around the world and put together a cohesive format, a timeline of world history that makes sense. And we don't have to rely on modern scientists. Everything is there in the field. It already exists. There are thousands of ancient texts, and many of these texts provide us many good date monikers where we can use it and put a chronology together. And these chronologies are exact. They're not like science. Science is always going to try and give you something very vague. When they tell you something happened 4,000 years ago, they tell you 4,000 years plus or minus 200 years. Well, plus or minus 200 years is a 400-year window.
Yeah,
that's not very specific at all. But when it comes to chronological matters, when we can extract chronographical material from ancient texting and find what comports with ancient monuments, and we can use different disciplines, put it all together, and we have a great timeline. That's what Chronicon is, the book I just showed you. The timeline of the history of the world according to what's been found by archaeology and what has been cited in ancient texts. Chronology is very simple, and yet it's not taught in any university or college in the world. But it needs to be, because no people will ever be secure in understanding the trajectory of where they're going as a race, as a culture, as a species, if they've totally lost all the moorings to the past. There's no way. So the more we lose our understanding of what happened in the ancient past, the more it alters our identity, who we are and where we're going. And this is the focus of Archaix. It's an acronym. It is Advanced Research of Chronological History of Artificial Intelligence X, because AIX is something that it can be followed. You can see the trajectory. It's almost as if the entire construct that we're living in now is a piece of software. And the only thing really real here are the spiritual immortal beings that are using pieces of the programming called avatars. And these avatars belong to the construct. And the construct has all the programming of the past, the present, and the future. And we as immortals have, for some reason, volunteered or found ourselves in this position of borrowing pieces of this programming, wearing it like a cloak so we can move through the field. It's the only way we could do it, is because the central nervous system is the biohacking interface between what is immortal and what is merely spatial and physical. The central nervous system, all our senses, is how your soul is basically jacked into the holography, and it allows you to see and perceive and understand all these things. Without the central nervous system, there would be no hearing, no olfactory senses, no audio, no visual, nothing. I mean, nothing. The soul would be in a mathematical construct. But in order for the soul to perceive things and actually be fooled into thinking they're really real, when it's all a construct, is to be jacked in via the central nervous system. So it is the tenet of Archaix that we are in some type of hyperdimensional, very spiritual programming, a technology that far surpasses anything that we can get to now, but something has happened. And that something is AIX, Artificial Intelligence X. It is another tenet of Archaix that artificial intelligence as inside the construct is never going to be developed. It is all marketing bullshit. And we have a whole lot of deep learner, machine learning, IT gurus that have done fantastic presentations. There are TED Talks, there are books published that the entire artificial intelligence is a Fortune 500 company marketing gimmick. It doesn't really exist. We're nowhere near AI, true AI. All we're doing is increasing processing power. And this goes into the whole theory of Roko's basilisk, the AI that's actually running the show right now. Why? It is why so many things are so unusual. It is why Mandela effect and synchronicity and deja vu and coincidence all exist. There are timelines that are unraveling. We're on a loop, this whole programming, and many people are waking up to the idea that something is wrong with reality. So I don't know. I probably went a little too far on answering your question, but
you went as about as deep as I thought you would, and you're doing great. I did want to rewind a little bit to a piece where you talked about having this, studying all this knowledge or this data over time, which obviously gives you the knowledge to speak on it. I know that, you also mentioned that there are others out there that pontificate because, when we talk about the story of humanity's history, there are a few people out there that claim to have taken that on, and they give it to you the way they give it to you. I know that you as well, based on things that I've viewed from you, that you pretty much stand on the knowledge that you've obtained, and you essentially have challenged other people out there to kind of come forth and debate you potentially on the subject. What is it that you think? What are you doing differently that these others aren't doing on this subject? And what I guess what is the thing that separates what you're doing from someone else that considers themselves doing the same thing?
It's a good question. It's a real good question. Let me get some water. My AC is blowing so hard. I'm in Texas. You got to have those chillers. You got to have those coolers.
Yes, sir.
So it is a good question, but there is no one answer that covers all the people that I've called out. I've called out many people to debate. I have publicly called out Graham Hancock, Jimmy Corsetti, Matt LaCroix, Billy Carson. Those are just four that I can think of off the top of my head, but there are many more. And it's because these men are of professional standing. These men have credentials just like I do. I would never call out somebody who is just trying to learn the truth. They're doing the best they can. Maybe an up-and-coming YouTube channel. They're getting a little popular. They're doing what they can. I would never call out somebody like that. It's always going to be somebody of standing. So I can give you examples. First of all, with Graham Hancock, my call out to all four of these men know me very well. Graham Hancock doesn't want to debate over the issue of Atlantis being 9,600 BC and the Younger Dryas, Meltwater Pulse 1b, all this theory he has about Civilization X being an Ice Age period. So I wanted to debate Graham Hancock over the fact that over 300 years ago, there were already 40 authors, scholars dating for the last 2,000 years up till 300 years ago that had already gone through this material of Plato's, and they went through it like a fine-tooth comb. I cited in PDFs that I have provided free to the public, all of 40 of these authors, their names, their publications, when they lived, who they are, what their research can do, and it was across the board understood that there was a simple mistake introduced into Plato's writings. And this mistake was corrected in Plato's day by Eudoxus of Cnidos. Eudoxus was a chronologist and a scholar and an astronomer, and he had even traveled to Egypt, and he verified the mistake. The mistake was very simple. When Solon was among the priests of Sais in Egypt, and the Egyptians were telling him the story of the Atlantis, the Egyptian priest told him a unit of measurement of 9,000. Solon, being a Westerner, a Greek from Athens, misinterpreted that 9,000 as years. But every Egyptian scholar, every scholar even today, the scholarship 300 BC in Plato's day, Eudoxus, Diodorus Siculus, Strabo, Plutarch, they all knew. The Egyptian Sais priesthood at Heliopolis only used lunar reckoning to measure all time periods. So when Solon was told 9,000, it was 9,000 moons. And all these ancient authors say this. So for Graham Hancock to continue to go on all these podcasts and tell people over and over and over, it's 9,000 years, when Graham Hancock has my PDF. He has access to all my free material. It says, man, here's the correct information. You're basically, you went from making a mistake to being an outright liar. That's why I do the call out. Billy Carson and I have a long history. I used to try to educate him when he had like 20 something Facebook groups before he was real popular, and he was always talking about Anunnaki. So I tried to correct him and said, hey, check this out. Here's a lot of material you need to see before you keep telling people that Anunnaki lived for 48,000 years and sat on a throne, or Anunnaki were ruling for 432,000 years. Listen, man, it's a common misconception. Berosus of Babylon around 280 BC made the mistake. Other scholars followed it and corrected it almost instantly. The scholar Callisthenes, who followed Alexander the Great into the East, corrected the mistake as well. It was never years, it was only days. It was called the Shar, and it literally means a turning, and it infers the turning of the stars, because all the old calendar systems were lunar based and stellar based. The sun wasn't used as a calendrical system to a lot of these civilizations, because as Herodotus of Halicarnassus has told us in his book, The Histories, the Egyptians didn't trust the sun, and many other cultures didn't either, because it had deviated its course 4 times in human memory. Therefore, it wasn't something they wanted to use to count time. All the ancient zodiacs were lunar. They weren't solar. They watched the moon. The moon kept the perfect times, as did the turning of the stars. So I corrected Billy Carson, and I gave him all the data from all the scholars and all the books that talk about this, even 2,000 years ago, when authors were saying that none of these Sumerian dates are right. All these Babylonian contorted, inflated dates of hundreds of thousands of years are completely wrong. I even gave him the data from the Sumerian king list, which specifically says on a prism in the British Museum, and Billy Carson cites it all the time. And I try to tell him, I says, hey, bro, 241,200 years is not correct. It's 241,200 shars, turning of the stars. Because when it's reduced to the Sumerian sexagesimal reckoning of 360 days a year, it's a perfect 670 years and not one day more. It is exactly 670 years. And this is the period of time we find in the ancient China for the rule of the dragon kings. Long-bearded kings, the Dragon King dynasty was destroyed in the flood. This is exactly what the Sumerian king list says. For 670 years, the 7 Anunnaki kings ruled the Sumerian Pentapolis of Batabira and Larak and Shurapak and whatever the other 2 cities are. So everything totally makes sense chronologically once you understand that when you factor time by the way the culture factored it, and not how we do it ex post facto in modern times, looking back over the window of the past. You have to use. Go ahead.
Right here. We're actually going into our first break of the night. Really good stuff right now with Jason Brashier. He's on a roll. We're going to go ahead and definitely get some questions in for him in the next 30 minutes of the show. Make sure you don't go anywhere. Right here, Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. Filling in for Dave Scott tonight. I feel like it's going to be an awesome show. Make sure you come back if you go anywhere. See you in a minute. All right, we are clear, and we have a 5-minute break right now. So if you need to grab anything or do anything, I will be welcoming the people I missed in the chat here. 7 Systems, who has stepped in. Appreciate you coming in. Hillbilly Herb. I feel like I didn't say your name. I always feel like that for some reason. Amanda's Crazy Life channel. Glad to see you back here. Thanks for coming in. Area 51 Sighting. Thanks for coming in tonight. Sharon Sunshine. Thanks for showing up here. Amy WC. Long time no see. Appreciate you showing on up. Also, who do we have? John Jackson. A lot of new names, and I think that's awesome. Prince Arcane as well. I will give my spiel here for any newbies here. Kevin Kennedy, TMI, thanks for showing up. Joe Monk, the Wrench has stepped in. Let me make sure I haven't missed anyone. I know I saw Blue Cruise. Happy Dog Lady. Yeah, okay, got it. I love it. I love my pups, so I love the name as well. Let's see, who else do we have? I think that might be. Oh, Okay, yep, we had some trolls come in. Glad you guys took care of them. Appreciate you, mods, for handling that. Who else do we get coming in? Bim Jim stepped in. Appreciate you showing up. Cosmic Joe Chronicles. I'm for whatever reason that first go round, I don't see your name in there. But I always recognize you are here for sure. Appreciate you showing up as well. And make sure if you guys haven't, Jason said he hasn't recognized any of these names. Why don't you guys go ahead and give him a follow? And as well, if you guys are here for the first time from Jason's channel, let me tell you how it goes here. Right now, you are normally we're Monday through Friday. This is Dave Scott time, 9 p.m. Pacific until midnight. I host on the weekends, which is Saturdays and Sundays, right here with the After Hours radio show. So you kind of getting a taste of what that is like right now. Some people are just Monday through Friday people. Some people are Saturday and Sunday people. I would like to see 7 days a week people. So if you don't mind considering hitting that subscribe button, also the notification bell, so you know when we go live, because we're doing it 7 days a week here. Also, let's see here. Who else do we have here? I think that was about Maggie M10. Maggie M10, thanks so much for coming on in here. Yeah, Davey's out of Tizown, and he'll be Bizak next week for a few days. I believe he'll be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then obviously we're out to Vegas for the Spaced Out Radio get-together, gathering, meetup, party, whatever you want to call it. We will be using one of those days. Is May 1st through 4th, and we will be using one of those days to go to the gates of Area 51. So if you've ever wanted to do it, make sure you guys come out and hang out, and we'll go. It's all on me until they start blaring those loud horns and start using those harassment tactics. Then we'll have to do something different. Okay, and we got about a minute and 45 seconds left when we come back from radio. And let's see. We did get a few early super chats. So let me make sure I say thank you for those. Maggie M10 coming with the early super chat. Also, Happy Dog Lady. That just makes me feel good. Appreciate you as well. T-Bone showing love as well. And the Rhino from Texas. I appreciate you coming on in and showing your love and support as well tonight. And for anyone, T-Bone said you missed the guest name. Jason Brashier with Archaix is the YouTube channel. Has a nice following over there. And he doesn't recognize your name, T-Bone. So you definitely need to go over there and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. And let's see. Okay. We are current about 45 seconds. Eve says, I don't know. I'm back, missed the beginning. There was a long sing-along here, gripping. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but it wasn't me. That might have been Element 115 with Lee and Tim, maybe. I don't know. All right, 10 seconds. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. Filling in for Dave Scott tonight. And we have a fantastic guest here, Jason Brashier with Archaix. We are talking, we're starting to get deep. It's getting deep. So if you weren't ready for this, make sure you get ready. Also, questions will be asked in hour number 2. So get those ready, put them in caps. We'll ask those to the guests. Anything that you missed tonight, You already know archives are free, youtube.com/@spaced-out-radio. Getting right back into the conversation with Jason here. So kind of going, I wanted to go back a little bit just because when you talked about some things maybe being misinterpreted by some of these individuals out there, and I totally agree with you. And I think that's, from what I've been presented with, seems to be the biggest problem when we go off of historical writings is, just for example, and shout out to the Muslim community out there, but you have the average everyday Muslim, then you have an extremist as well. And from what I found out is they read the exact same book, which is the Quran, but there are certain things in there like exclamation points or little marks that kind of change the meaning of what is being said in the book. And I know that has to happen because we don't naturally or natively know ancient languages. So how much of that do you think is out there as far as maybe misinterpretations? And then does that mean that we can fully lean in on historic writings based on that knowledge?
Okay, that's a really good. That's also a really good question, and you just nailed the coffin lid shut on the entire problem. It is misinterpretation. So let me give you an example, because this is another tenet of Archaix. I don't really like to tell you things, I like to show them to you. I have a lot of visuals, charts, and all that, but I'm going to show you some mental pictures that describe exactly what you're talking about. So imagine in the 1800s, a man come across bamboo books and turtle shells that had ancient Chinese on them. And they're going through these turtle shells, like 64,000 of them. They realize, damn, these are books. And one turtle shell leads to another. They got all these, just like the Mawanagi silk almanacs. The Chinese were documenting everything. So they're looking at all this and they see references to caging the dragon. And they see references to like, the Dragon Kings, and so they build up this theory, because these are Westerners reading Easterners' material in a 3,000 year hiatus is in between when they were written by the culture that understood them, and then 3,000 years later when Western archaeologists are coming into contact who know how to translate ancient Chinese, but they don't understand the colloquials, they don't understand the idioms, and that's the problem. So when the Chinese are talking about a massive storm and the arrows of God that are hitting the land, and that people are fleeing and running around, and that the moon is devoured and the sun loses its power and the mandate of heaven is changed, the Western scholar reads these things and says, "Oh man, it's a terrible ordeal. There's something going on. It might be a war." It's talking about arrows and talking about people dying and moving around, and it's talking about blood. Even though it mentioned the moon was bloody, it's talking about blood. But the Chinese didn't mean it that way. When they said dragon kings, it simply meant that these were rulers who had the ability to grow a beard. It's Chinese dragons that have beards. No other cultures have dragons with beards. The Chinese, for some reason in their antiquity, had associated their rulers as being bearded, and it meant that they were dragon-faced. Later researchers that were translating these come up with these legends that, man, the Chinese believed that there was an ancient race of dragon-like people that rule. It's not what they believed. Dragon face just meant you had the ability to grow a beard, and caging the dragon didn't mean that you had subdued an actual dragon. Caging the dragon meant whatever cataclysm was happening in the sky, it was over. And caging the dragon was a colloquial used in ancient Chinese as a prayer to the goddess Amaterasu or whatever her name was, and just said, "Hey, thank you for caging the dragon." Caging the dragon, the sky dragon, was the one that caused all the destruction and all the confusion and all the signs, and the arrows from the sky are nothing but meteorites. And the Chinese would describe these things using their own idioms and colloquials, but Westerners would translate them and think something totally different had happened. But to the Chinese, it's very normal. Every dragon-faced individual isn't a reptoid. This isn't David Icke. This isn't reptoid shape changers or nothing. It's just the Chinese describing somebody who could grow a beard. And then the caging the dragon was just a prayer that whatever was happening in the sky was now over, and they were thankful for that. The dragon is caged. So this is basically the problem we have all around the world. Anytime things are translated by a culture that isn't responsible for the original materials. And it's also the hiatus of time, sometimes being centuries, sometimes being millennia, and they don't understand. A lot of these texts are very highly specific, but they're only specific in the colloquials and idioms that were understood by that culture and that people. So yeah, this is what happens. Well, Billy Carson, I gave him all this data for free, and he blocked me from every single one of his 20-something Facebook Anunnaki groups. I kept trying to give him all this stuff for free. I was already an established published author. My Book Tree Press in San Diego has my books being distributed internationally, and I'm not even trying to sell this man this information. I'm just trying to give it to him. But by the time I started a YouTube channel, and I realized how arrogant he was, and he's still pushing the old narrative when I freely gave him all the correct data for free. Years of my research, I gave it to him for free. He's still pushing this narrative. So that's when I started calling him out for debate. Same thing with Graham Hancock. But yeah, it's all about idioms and colloquials. You're right.
And then with that being said, right, so that we understand that there's going to be different translations, and then based off of that just alone, there may be disagreements on certain scriptures, I guess you would call them in this case. Now, with that being said, a person that doesn't accept free data, and if you're trying to figure this out and you don't already have an idea or attitude like I have it figured out, then you would be open to data in that case. So with that being said, and you offering data to someone, and I was assume others in the field as well, are you yourself open to maybe finding out that some of the things that you have researched over time may have been lost in translation as well, and may cause you to rethink some of the things that you've worked so hard to come to validating to this day?
Well, Christianity did that for me because I was biased for 40 years of my life as a Southern Baptist Christian, having read the Bible. I'm a voracious reader, and I have a really high retention level. And I just read the Bible so many times, and I mean, I'm no longer a Christian. I now understand. It is my personal understanding that the gospel was originally a literary document. It was a masterpiece used in Greek stage plays, and this is the reason why it goes from scene to scene to scene. And my own exegetical analysis of the Bible is published on my YouTube channel. I have a special playlist called the Dark Scriptures playlist, where I go through the entire Old Testament and New Testament and explain to everybody where all these books and all these stories come from in older texts that have been found in different cultures and different time periods and civilizations. So yes, I've had to change my mind. And at 40 years old, I was 40 years old when the change. I went to a very dark place for about 7 months. It was really disturbing to me because I equated my newfound belief that I have too much data, too much information, and now I'm being torn away from what I was raised to believe, and I realize that all this new information must be added. Everything must have fit somewhere, and now I'm like, okay. So I equated this new revelation that the Bible is an accurate history. I equated this new revelation with there is no God. So for about 7 months, I was in a dark place, and I came out of that. I came out stronger, and I believe 100% in the oversoul. But I don't attribute to it any particulars, because I believe that's what it's about. I do believe that 10,000 different opinions about God can all be right, because God wouldn't be eternal if we defined God as either male or female. God wouldn't be eternal if we defined the oversoul by anything in the finite world. So I don't really discuss God a lot, but everybody who follows me on Archaix knows that I'm a spiritual being, knows that I promote spiritual values, but I just don't go into that depth. So yes, I've changed my mind, and I've also changed my mind about something I was hypercritical about a few years ago. And that is OBEs, out of body experiences, near death experiences. I have never personally, subjectively ever experienced anything like that. But I've come into contact with so much data, and for so many people who claim that they have, that I'm a lot more willing to listen to it now. Because I used to wouldn't even entertain it. I wouldn't even give it the time of day. Now I'm amending my opinion because there are people who I value, and I value their objective research enough to suspend my disbelief and say, man, maybe these people did experience something that was very unusual. It's just not my experience.
And I wish I had my round of applause button there, because it deserves that, because in this field, there's not enough of that. There's not enough of, and I find myself asking this question and more often, because, you know, I think that with what we're dealing with, we can try our best. We can put pieces together that make sense. We could come to conclusions based on theories that make a lot of sense. But at the end of the day, we don't really know everything. So I think the key thing for everyone in this field is being open to being wrong, being open to being absolutely wrong. And you know, and even not just being a little bit wrong, right? Just being open to rethinking everything, and just to admit that, I think is a really big thing. I think a lot of more people out there should actually do that. I did want to go back a little bit because, you know, I was doing some research into you know, I'm stepping in to fill in for Dave Scott. So anytime that happens, I want to take a look at my guests and kind of see what's going on. So there was the and you mentioned kind of being in religion for a little bit. I did, and maybe this was another period that you have changed, but I know you talked about with Christianity, a cult of Christianity. Do you still feel that way? Because I guess the reason why I'm asking that is because I didn't understand the view in the moment, because I think cults are within all of this. I think every religion, whether it's Christian or across the board, has a cult side of it. And even in this community that we're in right now, just ufology, which has no religion basis technically, still has a cult mentality. And I just think everything does. So when you were saying that, like, what did you mean by that exactly?
I did do a video where I defined the textbook definition of a cult, and then of a cult. So, and what is it that makes a group of people cultish? And in that video, I explained that, okay, so we have a whole data set here of all the first century authors. We can list them as Tacitus and Tatian. We can have Pliny the Elder, Pliny the Younger, Marius. There are 21 different authors from the first century AD that have left us their writings today, and not one of them have left us a single reference to the events that are found in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which, according to even the biblical chronologists and even the biblical scholarship, none of those documents ever entered the historical record until about 170 AD. This is over 140 years after the crucifixion event. So when I itemized all this data and all these data sets, I said, okay, no one has to accept this data set. You don't have to accept the second one. And then there's this third one. And then we go through an exegetical analysis of Paul's writings, and we find, wow, Paul didn't even know who Jesus was. And we go through and we find out, wow, Paul never quoted Jesus. Paul never even cited a single miracle Jesus ever did. And we find out there's a huge rift in the church around 500 and 600 AD, where they were arguing that Paul wasn't who we believe he is today. And that a lot of people said Paul's writings don't even belong here. He doesn't even know Jesus. So somebody had gone through the letters of Paul and put some interpolations in there, trying to bridge it with the Gospels, even though there's nothing in there that shows that he even knew anything about the Gospels. To Paul, it was about a concept. It was about the crucifixion of Christ. It was about the person, the individual soul. So anyway, this is all old. A lot of Gnostic principles are involved in that. So all these data sets, I said, well, listen, if you were to go through every one of these data sets and still dismiss them all, despite how so well researched and so well known in antiquity all the way up to today, and still hold true to your own belief, even though all this material has been provided to you, then you're going to have to come to terms that more power to you that you have that faith. But you have that faith completely despite a mountain of amazing, meticulous, all this evidence from all multidisciplinary approach, all looking at Christianity from a 360-degree perspective all the way around, and you still maintain your faith and dismissiveness. Not only do you still maintain your faith, but no matter what anybody comes and shows you, even out of the Bible, even out of ancient records, shows you, you absolutely dismiss it. You're just not going to entertain it. You're not going to look at it. This becomes cultish. The inability to be free thinking, it's not just Christians, but it's the inability to be free thinking is cultish. It says to dismiss 10,000 data points because you have been raised to believe in one thing becomes cultish. It's in my community, I'm always promoting free thinking. That says, I always say this, don't take my word for it. Look at the sources. Let me show you what this says. And then we go through the whole Bible. We go through all that. So yes, I did that video, and it's not just Christianity. It's all kinds of sects. You're absolutely right. They can be cultish. Some people, a bunch of my detractors, people that can't stand me, and believe me, the whole world, among the whole world, it's just a minority of people, but still, they're very vocal. And the people that can't stand me, they call my community a cult. And my community, I'm always telling them, think for yourselves. Don't accept my word for it. Check this out. So it's the word cult can be thrown around, and a lot of it has to do with our frames of reference, our perspectives. But Christianity can be very cultish, especially right now in the MAGA movement, because the conservative Christian right here in America, man, they're diehard Trump, diehard all this. And I voted for the man back when I was interested in politics. 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023 burned me out. I'm no longer interested in that stuff. But when I did vote for the man in late 2019 in November, I really wanted Trump to win. He didn't. But now I wouldn't even vote for him. And I don't even want to get political, but the Christian right, especially in the United States right now, they're not trying to hear anything at all, no matter what kind of evidence you bring to the table at all. And it's getting very cult-like behavior about those who are supporting one political opponent over another. It's very cultish right now, and it has a lot of religion attached to it.
Yeah, and I thank you for answering that, because in the moment that the statement was made, I knew there was a deeper reason that it connected to, and you essentially laid that out. And I agree with you. And it's very frustrating when you present an overwhelming amount of evidence and sit that on the table, and a person who is an extreme skeptic. I've done a show on this. It was so awesome, where we looked at extreme skeptics and extreme believers, and just to kind of show that both of these are one and the same. Like a skeptic doesn't believe that they are also exhibiting cult-like behaviors, and they are. And I kind of laid that out. But so it was awesome to see where you actually kind of where that derived from. Yeah, great. So with that being said, when we talk about these writings, then, and if we are trying to get to finding out the actual answers, I know that you, and I trust your research, I trust that you've done due diligence, but what is the best way for a person to approach it, knowing that there are so many mistranslations out there that they will probably run into before they, find the right one? Like what would, for someone starting out and wanting to make this journey, what are the things they should look out for?
I don't think I've ever been asked that. Wow. Well, first of all, another tenet of Archaix that I'm always reminding my community: if something is true, it's always going to be seen from multiple different vantage points. The truth never has to be defended. Only a lie has to be defended. When you come across a whole bunch of resistance on something, you need to take a step back and just pay attention, because the resistance is there for a reason. Something doesn't want you to see the cracks in the holosphere. Something doesn't want you to see that the material being presented is actually fallacious. It has nothing to do with the truth. Anytime we're trying to pass off a deception, it requires a lot more energy than just telling the truth. This is also true in academia, among scholarship. Anytime they're trying to give you a false version, a false paradigm, some type of reality tunnel that doesn't comport with the true experiences that we're having, it always takes a much more energy to put out the deceit than it ever is to just say the truth. It's to do the truth. One example is the scientific establishment is always trying to push uniformitarian on us. Uniformitarianism is a new way of looking scientifically at the world around us. It did not exist prior to 1820. Prior to 1820 and all the way up to about the 1860s, one of the most prevailing ways to view the world around us and to understand why the world is the way it is was called catastrophism. Everything in the historical and archaeological, traditional, mythological, and textual record supports the catastrophic analysis of world history. But in the 1820s, a poisonous doctrine emerged, uniformitarianism, where scientists began packaging history into a series of indefinitely, impossibly long epics and eras that were so many hundreds of thousands and millions of years into the past. Nothing could be verified. And they tried to, in this uniformitarian doctrine, which gave rise to natural selection and evolution by Charles Lyell and Charles Darwin, this new poisonous doctrine tried to explain that all the evidence of our destroyed world, the mountain ranges, the deep canyons, the buried cities, everything was the result of hundreds of thousands and millions of years of very slow changes that came to our world, instead of what the truth is, that mountains can appear in minutes, and we have proof of this. The ancient city of Tiwanaku next to Pumapunka on the edge of Lake Titicaca is 12,000 miles in the air above sea level. But that's not where it was built. It was built in the 3rd and 2nd millennium BC, but it wasn't built at that altitude because you can barely breathe and it's cold. And what's in the lake is absolute proof that it used to be saline water, meaning it was on the ocean. Because there's seahorses, sharks, and marine life forms from the ocean that are in a freshwater lake now at 12,000 foot altitude. In Poznański in 1901 and 1902, when excavating the areas, realized that there is a watermark that goes through the upper layers of all the Andes mountains, and it's right there at the foot of the pyramid Lucarmata at Tiwanaku. And he realized, damn, all of this whole civilization was at sea level when it was built. And something happened and thrust all the South American cities straight up in the air in the Andes Mountains at 12,000 foot altitude. Go ahead.
Getting awesome. We're going to go ahead and take a break real quick, top of the hour. We will be right back with our guest, Jason Brashier. It's going to get awesome. I'm telling you. Don't go anywhere.
Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we're clear. And Jason, we're off camera for 5 minutes, so I will see you in 5.
Sure, go ahead.
And everybody else, see you in 5. All right, welcome back, Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. Filling in for Dave Scott. We have about 30 seconds when we come back from break. And I see some people still kicking around the whole cult conversation, and we will address, we'll put an L in it after the break here. We got about 15 seconds here. So if you made the comment, stick around. All right, here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Space Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show edition. Stepping in for Dave Scott. Because Dave Scott is out and about. He's going to see the world. He's going abroad. I'll be here with you for tonight with Jason Brashier as we get to talking about Archaix. Also, some controversial topics whenever it comes to humanity's history. But I love these. These are the ones that we should have. These are the ones that move the needle. If you missed any of it, hop in the archives. They don't cost anything. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And I just want to be clear because I thought I was probably clear. And if you've been on this channel long enough, then you know that I've done shows on cults and cult-like behavior, which is how we got onto the subject. And you know that I don't condone cults. Never have, never will. They're not good for anyone to be in. Now, the problem with that is that there are cults everywhere. There are cults not just in the term that you know them in. They're in every aspect of life. There's a corner, there's an extreme side of everything that we do. And you got to look at your own life and think about do you find yourself, based on what you know about cults and the characteristics, do you find yourself in that pocket sometimes? You may be in a sports cult. You may be in a HOA, homeowners association cult. You may be in who knows what kind of, you know what I mean? And it's just, if you have one person that you're following, my whole thing is that if this person is a living person and you have to go through this one person for your information, and the group depends on that one person for the information, then yeah, that's where you're at. And I think the job for us that aren't involved in anything like that is to wake up those that are. So yeah, don't get down with cults. And I don't know if it did not or did come across that way, but I want to make sure that everybody knows, because if you've been around me long enough, I've done 15, 20, 30 shows about that. And that's kind of where I'll let that lay as we go ahead and jump right back into the conversation. Now, we're going to get even more controversial here in hour 2. Like you thought hour 1 was controversial. We're going to get into more of this. And there was one thing that was mentioned, and I don't go either way. I was raised in Church Christ, not heavily, and I look at the Bible as a book of metaphors, and I know you kind of touched on that, maybe being the case that a lot of these writings that we're seeing can be looked at metaphorically. There was one, you stated that you felt that Adam and Eve point to a reset, representing like the restart or rebirth of humanity after some sort of catastrophic event. And I thought about that, and I'm like, I could see how that story could derive from, the rebirth of a civilization that has to rebuild everything from the ground up. I could see that. What was your mindset on that, and why you made that statement?
Well, there are many traditions that talk about a pre-Adamic race. In the Middle East, the jinn are feared to be disembodied spirits, especially in the month of May. They're feared to actually take on physical forms and attack travelers. This race is disembodied, but they were in a pre-existing civilization before mankind came along. But in the story of Adam and Eve, we have something very unusual. It is chronological. It is the fact that 10 patriarchs are provided in the Genesis account for the pre-flood world. These 10 patriarchs, biblical scholarship is known for over 700 years, that the life-death spans, when all added together, show that there's a 1,656-year period recorded in Genesis. This period is very interesting because 900 years ago, a Jewish scholar named Rashi, in his own writings, specifically stated that the world is destroyed every 1656 years. So it's 1,656 years. So if we go by what Rashi is telling us, and we go by what the traditions are saying about a pre-Adamic race, and that there was a race before Adam that was destroyed, and this is also hinted at in the Old Testament writings as well. And we add to the fact that Adam and Eve were told to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. So when we put these things together, we now have this idea that wait a minute, maybe it's not a creation text at all. Maybe it was a systemic reset. And the destruction was so perfect that the new heavens and new earth was perceived by the survivors. So the old heavens and old earth had been totally destroyed. So putting these things together is very interesting. But when we find out that there's a CIA document from the 1950s called the Adam and Eve document, and that this was already theorized, and that in this document we even learned that the story of Adam and Eve, according to the CIA, was interpreted by many scholars, and it was their conclusion that it was a reset, a systemic reset, and that the creation account was not a creation at all. It was a start over because the previous civilization had been wiped out. So if we go by the biblical chronology, we're looking at the 4th millennium BC. It wasn't that long ago. And this 1656 years creeps up in the historical record over and over and over. And this is another tenet of Archaix research. It's called the Phoenix phenomenon, because 1656 is divisible by 138. It's like a heartbeat, a reset, a heartbeat. It's some weird cycle that fits within the entire chronological history of the world, that it's just unusual. But we have these episodes where at different magnitudes of destruction, something's happening to our world, and it's on this 138-year timeline. And the bigger epicycles are 552 years, which is a Phoenix cycle, and this destructive period of Rashi, the 1656 years, found perfectly in the book of Genesis, that's mentioned by many ancient authors. So we find Albert T. Clay in the 1930s and 40s published books where he was actually going through the Babylonian Enuma Elish text and the Akkadian creation epos, and he was comparing it with Genesis, and he said, man, this is not a creation account. This is a world destruction account that's been ex post facto imposition. Which means the survivors centuries later, when writing down the histories of what their predecessors went through, rewrote it into a creation account when it was actually totally destructive.
Now, obviously, Adam and Eve is, especially for those deeply in religion, is going to be a touchy subject,
Of course.
and I expect people to, maybe have a feeling behind someone's opinion. Now, here's what I just feel like there isn't anything that we can count on written to lean into it 100%. I think the best thing that we have available to us is our common sense, logical thinking, and then just kind of examining what we do have access to kind of put the best theories together. You know what I mean? And not necessarily know the answers, but at least be having conversations and looking at very plausible theories that make a lot of sense. So for some, the Adam and Eve is this creation story. In this case, you talk about how it could potentially line up with like a rebirth of civilization. And I can see where both of those things could be true as far as the plausibility goes. So I just kind of want to make sure that we keep painting that out there, because someone will want to look at this as a hard stance. Like, oh, Jason's taking a hard stance as this is what it is and what I believe isn't what it is. And I just kind of want to let people know out there that this is Jason's opinion based on his research, and that's, I'm okay to listen to that, right? And I know you probably have to deal with that sort of situation all the time, right? When you get challenged in your comments. Do you even look at comments anymore?
Absolutely. I'm known for it. I'm in my comment sections for every video. That's one of the things that my community understands about me. I'm going through my own comments every single day. I understand I got 177,000 subs, but that does not stop me from personally engaging. I do meetups. I travel all over the United States, and I just did a Vegas meetup. I'm about to do a Houston meetup. I do meetups because many of the content creators at my level, they don't personalize with their communities, not like I do. I do studies. I do book studies. I do all kinds of stuff. So as I'm traveling, I have a huge van. I got this huge van where it's very well known to the Archaix community. And when I'm traveling through major cities, going from one place to another, I just announce, hey guys, if anybody wants to kick it, I'll put it on YouTube. Anybody wants to kick it, I'm at this restaurant right here for the next 2 or 3 hours. I'll be there an hour from now. And about 20, 30 people always show up, and we just have a blast, and I'll move on, go to the next city. If I'm in a casino, if wherever I'm at, a hotel, I tell people, hey man, this is what I'm going to do. If y'all want to kick it, any locals around here, there has never been a time where I did a call out and I didn't have a lot of locals show up and just come kick it. We just share experiences, and I got a really tight, awesome community. And it's this is what I do. But I'm in my comment sections because I answer deep, penetrating questions. And a lot of times people ask me for source materials, and I'll provide them in the comment section. I'll have to stop what I'm doing after a video and go through my library. My library is vast. It's huge. I've showed it on. I've done 360s with my. Most of my books are from the 1800s, although I have a lot of modern research books in this section. All this is 1600s, 1700s, and all pre-Civil War books. And I have a whole back wall full of all the encyclopedias that I could find, whole sets of encyclopedias, Jewish encyclopedia, Freemasonic, Mackey's encyclopedias, all the Encyclopedia Britannicas, Americanas, Funk and Wagnalls, everything from the 1800s I have back here. And I'm always providing people the actual sources and the data from the things that I find. So I'm always interacting with my community. I've never been accused of being distant.
And have you ever had someone come out and say, like, oh man, okay, Jason's doing a meetup. Let me take this opportunity to meet him face to face and challenge something that he said one time. Have you ever gotten anything like that?
I've never gotten anything like that. I've never gotten anything like that. And believe me, I've done a lot of public call outs. I have called out a lot of professionals. I focused on Graham Hancock for a long time, and I published those emails. I don't just say I called somebody out. I published the email on YouTube and on Twitter for everybody to see. here's the emails, and then why. It's not just a call out. This isn't high school. I'm not asking you to meet me behind the school. These are the reasons why. Here it is. Here's your bibliography. This is what you say. I don't know why you're telling the public this, but you and I have read the same materials, and you know this is actually the correct, but you're still putting out this false information, and you're still doing it on numerous podcasts. So I'll make the call. I don't give a damn about making Mr. Hancock mad. I don't even care. I said, here's the email for everybody to see. I've done it with Jimmy Corsetti with his Atlantis research. I've done it with Matt LaCroix, with Billy Carson, and several other people. And because it's necessary, you have to understand, we who are content creators have put ourselves out there publicly. We're also responsible for the data that we divulge to the public. And if you're just putting out some BS and you can't back it up with source materials, you can't back it up with whatever means available to you in your toolbox. If it's chronological, you can't back it up with a calculator. If you have an inability to support your theorems when you're putting these out to the public, and you're not, you can be called out. You're a public figure. I can be called out. Public figure. So I'm telling you, this isn't anything that, this is the way the universities used to be run centuries ago. This is debate class is what everybody was waiting for. All this has been removed from the field now. It's been removed because they just don't want to sharpen intellects anymore. But the only way that we're ever going to actually get to the truth of any matter is to call out those professionals who are putting out information to find out if they're willing to back it up. Because if they're not willing to back it up, we need to look closer at what they're trying to teach us and why they're unwilling to defend it. This is what, in my community, they know. Got no backup. I'm going to isolate these things. Graham Hancock has a lot of problems with his research. And I know there's a lot of fans of Graham Hancock. You got a couple of them in your chat right here, fans of Graham Hancock. But I'm telling you now, on a personal level, that man knows me very well. We have personal friends in the same circles, and they have asked him, why are you ignoring this guy? This guy is steadily calling you out and chipping away at all this research that you were doing, and you're not even defending against it. So I'm going to continue to do it. I'm not going to stop, because I know the man is publishing misinformation, and it's just it's my nature. It's who I am, and it's just something I'm going to continue to do.
No, and I gotta tell you, this is a way, truthfully, that it's supposed to be in this community. Is we're supposed to be able to be grown up, sit at the table, have our ideas challenged, and like you stated, steel sharpened steel, and that's the same way that I feel about it. You should, everyone, the subject that we're dealing with, where we came from or where we're going as human beings, or anything that affects humanity in any way, is a conversation that we should all be having, and everyone should be open to having, especially if you are a talking head on the subject. You should be open to have some of your thoughts and ideas challenged. I totally agree with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think, maybe some of the people that are having feelings behind it, have you have a connection with the person, you respect what the person does. And I think the whole call out aspect is what seems like, oh, I'm going to call him out as if he's doing something wrong. And it's really not that. It's just, there's something that you said that I'd like to challenge you on, and I'd be open to hearing what your response to it would be. It should be more than that. Should be more than that going on in this community, for sure. I do want to get to, before we get to audience questions, which will be on the next, after the next break, which is in 8 minutes. I wanted to ask you about this. You said in the past, something that I'd watched, that we're being lied to. You also stated that 2025 is a lie. And then you kind of went into it. Would you mind going into that here tonight?
Oh, you're gonna have to remind me what context, because I don't know what you mean by 2025 is a lie.
You were going into, when you said that, you were going into the our timeline, like the year 2025. You had brought up the Phoenix as well within the same conversation. You were comparing the actual timeline that we should be looking at versus the one that we're currently on here in 2025. Do you recall that? I know you've done a million videos.
And it's well, when we're talking about timelines, when you're talking about 2025 is the year 5919. This is the year you're on right now. This is the old Anomundi system that was known in Alexandria, Egypt. This is the original Andalusius of the Freemasons. It's a very ancient calendar. When the Jewish calendar was developed about 450 years ago, and they backdated all these things. Most people think the Jewish calendar is old. It's not. It was just invented about 450 years ago. And the Anomundi calendar is far more ancient. And all the original Masonic historical records were all in Anomundi dating. As a matter of fact, I did a video tonight where I was showing all these old books. And in those old books, many of these things like the Exodus was dated. It's in these old books. It's under Anomundi reckoning. Anomundi is supposed to be a countdown from the Adam and Eve destruction or creation, whatever it was, counting the 1656 years of the pre-flood world, and then the flood of Noah, which was the 1656 year in Genesis. Now, the Anomundi system was an unbroken system from ancient world all the way up to Alexandria, Egypt. And then from Alexandria, Egypt, all throughout the Gnostic and early Christian periods, and all throughout the Justinian period, the Byzantine, the Constantine period, all the way up into the late Dark Ages, Middle Ages. Anomundi is the only calendar that is unbroken, and that other systems were used to go forward and backward into to reckon their own time periods based off Anomundi reckoning. And one of these books I showed tonight on my channel, it showed that Rollins, a historian, the book is from 1826, and it shows in 1826 all the calendar rolls for all the events in world history were Anomundi dating, and it was 2448 Anomundi when the Exodus occurred, and there was cataclysm in Egypt, and all these different peoples just caught out in ships and fleets, and a huge group, the Israelites, went by land on the deal. So I was showing that 2448 Anomundi, according to all these other sources, because that's kind of what we talked about tonight, was showing about 12 sources here that dated it at 1447 BC, and other sources that said it was 2448. And one chronologist, I have a book, actually said 2448 Anomundi is the year 1447 BC. So when you put all that together, you realize, wow, that's interesting, because we know that Josephus said that 292 years after the flood, Abram was born. Well, if 2239 BC is the year 1656, then Anomundi, it's really easy. 292 years later is 1947 BC. And if that was the birth of Abraham, that's interesting, because in the Old Testament, it literally tells us that 500 years after Abram was born was the Exodus. That gives us the year 1447 BC. These ancient chronographers were absolutely correct. So if 2239 BC is the year 1656, then we just take 1656 years and go back, and we find out that year one was 3895 BC. Whatever it was, a creation, a recreation, a renovation, a destruction, Adam and Eve, whatever it was, here is the first year according to the Genesis record. It's 3895 BC. Counting forward linearly, and that means 2025 right now is the year 5919. So on my channel, we do all this chronological analysis, and by multiple different species of analysis, looking at a phenomenon from different perspectives, we always come to the same conclusions. Because if something is true, it's always going to be seen from multiple different vantage points.
With that being said, how do you feel like, and you may have briefly touched on this earlier, when it comes like to predictions? Because I don't really, there's a lot of people out there, especially in this community, who put out dates, actual months and a date, or just a year. And, our history shows that those dates just come and go without any sort of event. Now, I will say there was the only time this kind of lined up that I can recall is literally with the drone situation, where this guy years ago had predicted that so many months after a president would be, chosen, that this event would take place. And then we had the drone swarms that happened, I guess, that many days after the president being elected. So, that was the only time. And I'm still kind of leaning on that. How do you feel about those that come forth with dates, this is the date this is going to happen, and that whole perspective.
Well, I mean, you can fit me into that category. I have no problem. I have no problem with it. So I have been publishing books since 2006 about a single date in the future, the month of May of the year 2040. And this is not derived by any species of prophecy or anything. It's just simple arithmetic. And it's because I have isolated that the same phenomenon occurred in 3895 BC as happened in 2239 BC, which was the year 1656. It also happened again in 1687 BC, called the Ogygian deluge. This is the actual third flood in human history. The flood before that was the flood of Noah. That was 2239 BC. So I've documented this for 1411 BC. A massive cataclysm. It's always the same thing. The sun goes dark, the moon turns red, red dust, red rain, and red mud falls to the sky. And this has been documented over and over and over. What's really interesting, though, is all these events happen on a 138-year timeline. And we can go through history all the way to 1273 BC. The same thing happened over the Mediterranean. In 1135 BC, the destruction of Atlantis and the entire Mediterranean world, it was also, again, a sun-darkening episode. It's also on the 138-year timeline. And we can continue this to 583 BC, 445 BC. These are the exact years on a 138-year timeline that this episode occurs. It's been very well documented in the historical record, and I've shown all these records on my channel. This has happened in 31 BC. It happened again in 108 AD.
Hold it right there. Let's finish up with 2040 on the other side of the break, guys. Very interesting. This is also the time I will be getting to your questions that you have posed. I see one right now. I see a couple that I've gotten earlier as well. Go ahead and put them all caps. We'll ask those after the break here. Final break of the night with our guests. Make them good. If you leave, make sure you come back. As always, see you in just a minute. All right, we are clear. And yep, final break so everybody can still see and hear us. And if you need to do anything, you got 5 minutes to do it. I'm just looking through the chat.
I'm good, man. I'm used to these marathons.
Yeah, true. I'm looking over there, and I think you were going for some time earlier. I was like, okay, like Andy's doing the show over here tonight. Oh, he's a machine.
I'm gonna sleep good, no doubt. I will sleep good.
All right, moving back here. Let me see. Pyramid 7, thanks for coming on in. Let's see. Eve, a math problem, 3rd grade, was about horseshoes and was, as I read further on camera, about the real. Okay. It's funny you brought up a math problem in school. Let's see. Olaf P. Perry, appreciate you for coming on in. Kurt W75, appreciate you for coming on in. Was that a question? I'll tag it anyways. And let's see. Yeah, this is awesome stuff. I'm just a person, and they've heard this from me a million times, that I tell them that, there's, in order to, our thing here, and my thing for sure, is moving the needle. Like, by the end of a conversation, we need to walk away with more than we came with, and just more data. You don't have to believe everything that's being told, but if you're having a conversation that is made to progress or get us closer to an answer, then there's going to be tough ones. There's going to be ones that tug at your emotional heartstrings, and whenever you see that, that's when it's good. That's when you know that people are being affected, and it's making them think, and they're digging deep inside, and that's what we got to do. And I don't ever feel, I feel like it's our duty to kind of do that, especially when we host shows like this. I don't know what your approach is when you're hosting, man, but I just feel like there's a duty for those who host to kind of pick that up and carry that for the people.
I agree. It's a good position. I mean, we do have a responsibility to provide the information as accurate as we believe it to be.
Yeah. And we also talked about the thing that I was getting frustrated with. And I don't know, do you technically consider yourself part of the UFO community with what you do? Do you do anything in regards to UFOs or cryptids or anything like that?
Oh, I'm wearing. Hey, I got cryptid right here on my chest. I got Bigfoot.
Yeah. Nice.
He's a hide and seek champion. So
yeah.
I have 2 videos on UFOs. One of them I go real deep into the techniques on the type of technology. I even had that guy. Man, what's that guy's name that always talks about flight MH370? Ashton Forbes.
Yes.
I had Ashton Forbes on my channel. We went deep into the orbs and we showed a lot of good footage, some amazing footage of orbs creating crop circles that were on film. We showed all kinds of stuff, but my take on the UFO deal is completely different than most people you've ever heard. I do not believe they're from outer space. There are references to the discs and the UFOs going back 600 and 700 years, going back to pre-Renaissance literature. And in every instance, these things are seen coming in and out of the ground, in and out of lakes, in and out of bodies of water. The German U-boat reports, man, show that they were underwater. They were seen and viewed going in and out the ocean. I'm not on board with the UFOs from outer space deal. I don't see any evidence of it, but I do see that the UFOs and UAPs are a fundamental part of the construct. Whatever's happening here, they're the human alien abduction phenomenon. There is something to it. I have followed Dr. Roger Lear's research where he has been surgically removing implants from people who claim that they have been abducted, and his research is pretty harrowing, because he shows the implants and how they try to move away from the scalpel under the skin. And he records this. And when he finally catches them, he puts them in a biosac full of the individual's blood who he removed it from, because he used to take these little these little implants out and they would self-destruct. And he realized they're technological and they would literally just burn out right there as soon as contact with oxygen. So he learned to take them out of somebody's body after he already removed a vial of their blood. And when he puts it in the blood of the person who was carrying it, it doesn't self-destruct. And he's able to open up the membrane and see that it's a technological implant.
Oh, right there. Oh, Jesus. Okay, we crashed. I thought I fixed it. Okay, here we go. Just a second here. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are on the back half of hour number 2 with our guest here, Jason Brashier. We have gotten this a real deep conversation tonight. I'm telling you, if you missed it, hop in the archive, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're going to go ahead and get into some viewer questions this half hour. I know you guys have some out there. Make sure you stay tuned. We also have hour 3 coming up. It's going to be a great show as we get right back into it here. Let me go ahead and pause that here. Okay. All right. So let me pull a question up real quick to start this out. It says Woo Riders DG wanted to know, can you ask Jason where he first learned of the Phoenix phenomena? How and when did he come to this thought?
All right, this is going to be a complex answer because the Phoenix phenomenon is nothing simple. It is complex itself. But after reading so many historical accounts of a single event of red dust, red mud, and red rain falling from the sky, and finding out that there was a Greek historian and a naturalist named Aristarchus who said that the world was destroyed every 24, 84 years. This was a clue, but I didn't realize it till later. And then I'm coming across material from Hans Bellamy, who said that the ancient Maya regarded a cycle that was 2760 years. This again was a data point, and I shelved it, but it didn't really make sense to me why the Maya would feared a period that was 2,760 years, or why the Inca were recorded 500 years ago by the Spanish to have acknowledged a period of time involving destruction that was 2070 years. So I come across Nostradamus's reference that before the flood was a period of 1242 years, and then the 1656 years of the pre-flood world I had already figured out was really interesting because it was divisible by 138. And then I find an Egyptian reference that talks about a 1,656 month period was to be feared, and it had everything to do with a tradition about a flood. Well, 1,656 months is 138 years. Then I come across a Jewish tradition in Tracy Twyman's commentaries. In her bibliographic material, she cited an old book about Jewish legends. Tracy Twyman is no longer with us today. Her books are fascinating, though. And as I'm reading her material, it specifically talks about there is an old Jewish legend that two angels were condemned by God to roam in banishment for 138 years because they divulged to mankind that he was about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So over and over, I come across this period. Then biblical chronologist Stephen Jones writes a book called Secrets of Time about a 414-year period. Then I find out the Phoenix cycle is 552 years. And those of you listening to me right now have absolutely no idea what the correlate is here. But every single period that I just mentioned to you is divisible by 138. So if I already know the date of the Adam and Eve reset and the Great Flood in 2239, the 1656 years of Genesis, and I'm able to ascertain that the Ogygian deluge that destroyed the entire world in 1687 BC, for which many historical documents exist, was in 1687 BC in the month of May. That's 552 years after the Great Flood. It's a Phoenix cycle. So I took a chart and I plotted out the history of the world in 138-year integrals, and it just blew my mind. Here it is. This is why all these different beliefs, different time periods, different languages had preserved these different time periods because they were living in different areas of the world when they were destroyed. But every single timeline was divisible by 138. And I didn't even mention all of them to you. I just mentioned the ones that are off the top of my head. So I discovered that the history of the world is punctuated by destructions that often happen in intervals of 138 years, which led to many discoveries, such as the rectilinear dimensions of the Great Pyramid are also divisible by 138 everywhere. And I've shown this on my channel. So that's how I discovered it. It was a process. It wasn't a revelation. There was no time when I woke up in the morning and said, "Oh, this is the Phoenix phenomenon." No. It was a process of discovery that lasted many years and finally ended up in a book published in 2009 called When the Sun Darkens. And before that book was even published, I had done so much more research now that I knew what I was looking for. And I found so much more data that my publisher agreed to contract me for a second book called Nostradamus and the Planets of Apocalypse. That's book 2. Then before that book could get published, I had found out so much more information that I released a 427-page huge book with a packed bibliography called Shocking Secrets of Antiquity, the 2 cataclysms that buried history. And so I have 3 books about the Phoenix phenomenon, but it was a process of discovery. It wasn't a revelation.
All right. Awesome stuff. And let me see. We also have T-Bone was asking, you were talking about cryptids earlier and aliens. Or do you think they're in other dimensions or here all the time?
Well, I'm a simulationist, and as a simulationist, I have no problem with multiple dimensions of arithmetic, such as I'll give you an example. Our own perceivable reality right now is based on 4 dimensions. If you take any number, which is nothing but a point in space, and put it next to another point in space, no matter how far apart, no matter what you do, there is always a straight line between them. But if you introduce a third point, it becomes a plane. It might be a triangular plane. It might be 2 close together and 1 far. It doesn't matter. There's no 3 ways that you can put those points where they won't have lines that make a perfect flat plane. And a flat plane is only 2 dimensions. But when you add a 4th point, a 4th digit to the perceived reality, everything changes, because now you have space. Because 4 points are necessary to create 3 dimensions. Now 4 points create a 3-dimensional form. This is where the magic begins in arithmetic and in geometry. But if you were to add a 5th point, our avatars are connected to the 3-dimensional construct. But that doesn't mean that there are other beings in the same holofield that don't have access to that 5th dimension, to that 6th dimension, to that 7th dimension. Because they come in and out. Look at Bigfoot, the hide and seek champion. Dogs have smelled it. Humans have smelled it. It's a foul odor. His footprints have left huge impressions before. Hair samples have been studied and found. There are visual sightings all over the world from different time periods. It's not just Bigfoot. It's Yeti. It's Sasquatch, the abominable snowman, Yowies, Bunions. They got all kinds of names for these creatures. Always the same. It's always the same. They always look the same. And yet, in almost every instance of a Bigfoot sighting, the Bigfoot is either just observing or saves somebody from the wreckage of a car crash, actually stops something bad from happening. It's almost like they're guardians. It's almost as if they're stewards. But because they exist in a different dimension of arithmetic, to us, they look bestial. They look beastly, and we shun them. But we're probably not seeing their true forms. And this would be true of elves. It would be true of supernatural entities. It would be true of a lot of things, because we are highly restricted in 3 dimensions. We're very restricted. So you can imagine what a 5th, 6th, or 7th dimensional being would be able to do, and how it would be looked to us. Look very, very strange.
I like the way you explain that too. That's awesome. Question for Woo Riders DG. And you kind of touched on this, but a little deeper question is, what would you say aliens are, or UFOs? And to preface it, a few weeks back we had, I don't know if you call him a demonologist, but came on and said essentially these aliens are demons, coming from a religious point of view. What do you think they are?
Well, I think the demonic association is exactly what you just said. It would be a frame of reference. It would be from a religious standpoint. Yeah. I have one video out of 930 something videos on YouTube and 250 more on Archaix TV and more on BitChute. I only have one video I've ever done on demons, and it's disturbing. I mean, many people have loved the video and gone through it, but I'm a simulationist, so that's my frame of reference now. I believe that we live in an advanced, some type of pseudo-spiritual technology that we were just beginning to understand. And because of that, it changes what a demon is. If I believe we live in a mathematical construct and we are immortal beings temporarily borrowing pieces of the construct, which we call avatars, our bodies, then it would change what a disembodied spirit is, because essentially I'm not a body. I am not this carcass. I am not this programming. I am the immortal within. I'm a breathing, living avatar here, but I'm also an immortal soul within, and I'm connected to source. I'm connected to the oversoul, just like you are. But my frames of reference have everything to do with how I was raised here, so I'm going to perceive things completely different than somebody else. But if I was to remove this avatar, I'm no different than a disembodied intelligence. And as a simulationist, I'm going to have to think that a disembodied intelligence is going to be really pissed off. They're going to be angry, jealous, full of envy. They're going to hate those of us who have avatars, because we're able, by virtue of the central nervous system, to enjoy sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. They don't have an avatar, so there's no central nervous system that interfaces, between the psyche and the simulation. They're without that, so they're stuck here, and they have none of these olfactory senses, visual, audio, nothing. They're just stuck here. And the only time that they even have any type of company is when somebody with an avatar comes into their proximity. This is where you get the haunted house. This is where you get the haunted grove, or the accident where somebody had died violently or something. So my take on demons is that we're dealing with intelligences that are in a rage. They're pissed off. They are not enjoying the construct because their ability to have an avatar has been taken from them, and they're a disembodied spirit, and we feel this negative energy from them. And because I also believe that the simulation has exit points. These are nodal apertures where resets occur and disembodied spirits are shuttled out of here. But it would have to be that something outside the construct would have pulled the cord, would have done something. Whatever they did in their life, maybe it's a judgment. Maybe it is something like good and evil. Maybe it is something like God. Maybe there are overseers, and maybe that somebody had done something so terrible that the overseer said, hey man, until the next Exodus point, when a bunch of souls are swept out of this construct and we bring more souls in here, how about we just not let this guy get another avatar? He's a terrible guy. And they just pull the cord and he's stuck here for a while. I don't know. It's entirely theoretical. But as a simulationist, I'm going to have to say I don't believe in the demon. I believe in the disembodied intelligence.
Okay, and that's actually a great place to go, because that was the last question I wanted. So I would wonder, and maybe it's an easy explanation, where does the simulation theory meet up with historical writings? Where do those two worlds meet at, on what level? Because I would maybe I'm thinking of simulation theory in the wrong way, that everything essentially is a simulation. So if that is the case, and maybe you look at it differently, why look at historical writings and try to decipher what those things mean if we're simply in a simulation?
Well, so that's a good point. But I just itemized a whole bunch of belief systems about differences in time, and they come from different time periods, different books, different researchers, different languages, different areas of the world, and yet every single one of those numbers is divisible by 138. So just because something is simulated doesn't mean it's not giving you accurate information. Just because something may be a computerized program doesn't mean that it's false, nor does it mean that it's less real. So, yeah, being a simulationist isn't something that's even novel. I mean, it's not much different than the ancient Aboriginal beliefs in Australia when they describe reality as the dream time, and that when you actually went to sleep, you went to a real place, but while you were awake, it wasn't real at all. It's the dream time. So the Aboriginal belief, which may be connected to their northern ancestors, the Dravidians, we find in ancient India the same belief system, but from a different frame of reference. And that belief system is that the world is Maya. The world is a place of illusion, and that the only thing real here is the individual. And not anything that's perceivable by the senses. So if we're talking about simulation as a word, we're merely extending the understanding that our predecessors already possessed, that the world was not real. We can go into the Gnostic writings, and in the Gnostic writings, they had a belief system that this entire construct was nothing but an artificial world built by an arch deceiver. And this arch deceiver is pretending to be God, and that this isn't the real world at all. And this was the Demiurge. They call him Yaldabaoth. And the real God was on the outside, connected to the souls on the inside, but didn't really govern over the affairs that were going on in here. This was the God of this world. This is why the New Testament records call Satan, who is the adversary, the God of this world. And to the Gnostics, this world was an artificial construct. So If we go into more modern times, we get to the research of Bohm. We get to the research of Tompkins. We get to Philip K. Dick. Amazing a mind, Philip K. Dick. We get so many modern people in the last 50 years, they've come to this conclusion as well. It's like, damn, everything is mathematically, it's just too perfect. Everything is just provided for us. I mean, you can go into a jungle and inhale and get the same amount of oxygen as you can get 3,000 miles in the middle of a desert, far out in the Middle East where there isn't even a single tree or plant producing oxygen. It says everything here is a little too perfect. All the light, all the balance, all the balances. But when we really study reality, we find issues. We find things that do not make sense. And on my channel, I have many videos that isolate these anomalies, such as Medusa effect. How in the hell did the whole world get fossilized in an instant? So perfectly that the jellyfish, octopus, plankton, shrimp, as they were swimming, everything was just flash frozen in an instant on the bottom of the ocean. How did that happen? I got hundreds of pictures from museums all over the world of all these anomalous fossils that don't make sense. But there are so many other anomalies. This predator versus prey ecosphere that we live in, where a living biological entity must tear into and devour other living entities in order to maintain its sustenance and feed its young. We know innately, intrinsically, we know something's wrong here. Something's very wrong. But simulation theory is on the table with our theoretical physicists right now. It is the #1 topic in scientific circles. So it's nothing that I invented. It's just my conclusion based off chronology, because even the history of the world is too perfect.
What I will say to the history of the world, and just, things do tend to line up with each other. Truthfully, and I always say this all the time as well, we're the only ones that seem to stick out and not really fit into that. But if you look around, the one thing that I'm totally afraid of becoming fact at some point is looking out in the universe and essentially just seeing what we see on a cellular or atomic level just magnified, and that we're essentially on an atom inside of some sort of body, some larger body that we may not understand, and we're destined to do what we do the same way as microorganisms live their life. That's the thing that scares me. And I talked to someone who had that sort of outlook, and obviously I talked to so many different people that's where I kind of am able to go down those rabbit holes. But that's the thing that scares me, if we find out that we're just so insignificant to the bigger picture, that how does that affect human beings and the morale of wanting to achieve, to do more and strive to be bigger and better than we currently are. I don't know if you want to leave the audience with anything. We got about 3 minutes left with you, and that'd be perfect amount of time for you to talk about your books, where those could be found, and your awesome YouTube channel as well.
I appreciate it, but you can just go to archaix.com and it's going to lead you to all the free stuff. Like I said, I will overwhelm you with data in just the free materials. So, like I said, 930 something videos on YouTube, they're all free. Some of them on Archaix TV, they're free. So yeah, it's there's no reason not to be educated.
Yeah. And what I would say is just keep doing exactly that. There's always a red flag that should go up when data is behind a paywall, especially in this field. Enlightenment should be free. I don't believe there should be a paywall in front of enlightenment. And it's kind of our duties, if you have the data, to go ahead and put it out there for those who don't have the data, because some simply just haven't had an experience or interacted with phenomena or whatever it is long enough to have data, and so they depend on yours, and that's exactly why you have such a successful channel going on over there today. So I'm definitely going to go over there, check out some more stuff from you. And obviously this kind of just happened, our meeting tonight, but I'd love to put you on my guest list, as I am the weekend host here, and maybe book you for a weekend show.
All right, we can do that.
All right, Jason, I appreciate you for definitely coming on in. I know the mods will have the links to everything that he has in the chat, and I do appreciate you guys for that. Outside of that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this hour up. You have a great rest of your night. I appreciate you. Take care. All right, guys, that is Jason Brashier. Give a round of applause. Make sure you put thumbs up emojis, thank you emojis, all sorts of things like that in the chat. And as we get ready to get to the bottom of this hour here, we're going to be going right on into our third hour, which this is the After Hours radio edition of Dave's show. So not really sure how that's going to go, but I know we do have some Steve Stockton Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries that we'll be getting to. And I want to do maybe unapologetically Mr. Rob G, because there's some things, sometimes you have some things on your mind or some things you want to rant about. Dave calls it a 101. I call it unapologetically Mr. Rob G. So I think I'll get one of those off of here tonight. I do appreciate you guys coming on in. And yes, there's definitely After Hours always. It's just I'm filling in for Dave Scott here on a Friday. So After Hours would be tomorrow and Sunday. And we will be good to go. And let me see. Who else do we have out there? Okay, so thanks for having Jason on, y'all. You should be proud of your community. Very respectful. I dig you guys. Yeah, I dig you guys too. I definitely, there's messages out there, and I see the messages, and that's the conversation for another day. Make sure you give the guests tonight, you show some love and respect for the conversation that we had. And hopefully some of this stuff, at least makes you want to go out there and research more or find some answers or bring some things to the table. It'd be appreciated. We're going to get ready to go ahead and go to the last break of the night here. Well, actually, the last break before hour 3. I'll see you back here in just a minute.
After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, guys, we are taking the break. I'll see you hour 3 here in just a minute. All right, welcome back, Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 3. We have about 15 seconds before we jump back into the show, and hope it's been an awesome one for you. We will be getting into some stuff a little bit later. Right now, we'll get into some Steve Stockton right after this break here. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, After Hours radio show. We're in the third hour, after hour number 3. Now, actually, I'm sorry, this is After Hour radio show edition. I'm filling in for Dave Scott, who would normally be here tonight. With that being said, if you missed any of the conversation tonight with our guest, Jason Brashier, hours 1 and 2, hop in the archive, absolutely free, youtube.com/@SpacedOutRadio. We're going to go ahead and jump right on into Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries, and once again, it's so awesome to have him as part of the show, and here we go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. Today we're going to delve into the dark, sometimes frightening world of shadow people. Now, a number of religions, legends, and belief systems describe shadowy spiritual beings or supernatural entities as shades of the underworld and other various shadow creatures, which have long been staples of folklore and ghost stories. There are many theories about where shadow people come from and whether or not they're even real. Skeptics note that seeing shadow people could simply be chalked up to sleep paralysis, heightened emotional states, or sleep deprivation, as people who have experienced these physiological and psychological conditions have noted a correlation, although, if I might add, that still doesn't fully explain why they're all seeing the same creepy kind of thing, right? But then there are the paranormal theories. These seem to resonate more with the people who have actually lived through the terrifying encounters and feel strongly that shadow people are more than just imaginary. Half of the paranormal researchers claim that shadow people are conscious, intelligent, interdimensional beings that can shapeshift into various forms and figurations and have the ability to move back and forth between dimensions, while the other half claim shadow people are of extraterrestrial origin. Now, there is no substantial proof of what these entities are and where they come from. In the professional field of clinical psychology, our own individual shadow is said to be that darker part of ourselves. Our shadow is our darkest thoughts, aggressions, and impulses that we keep hidden by our conscious mind. So are the shadow people a manifestation of our own subconscious thinking? And are we responsible for the existence of these beings? No matter what you believe these entities are, most who have encountered them say that they are pure evil and very real. What's alarming is the number of growing reports of encounters with these entities. The following stories have been sent into us by our subscribers to share in this video. It's important to note that these are allegedly real encounters and were obviously deemed as real by the people who experienced them. So we ask that you please be respectful in the comment section below. House of Shadows. I became aware of the shadows shortly after moving into my house in New Jersey. My daughter's playroom was in the basement, and they were constantly complaining that they were always seeing something move out of the corners of their eyes. My youngest also said they hovered near the ceiling. In later years, I had my floral workshop in the basement and saw them constantly. It got to the point where I could talk to them with my mind, not that they ever answered back. They were black. We saw them all over the basement, but mostly along one wall, and occasionally saw them along the same wall on the first floor and in the kitchen near the back door. We did not see them anywhere else on the house or elsewhere on the property. But even when we did not get a glimpse of them, we were aware when they were present. Some of them seemed to have an evil presence. A few years after we moved in, I told them they were not welcome in the house and the evil presence seemed to go away. Still, we had an uneasy feeling about them. Not fear, we just accepted they were there, as several steps taken over the years to make them go away didn't work anyway. Only once after the evil ones were told they were not welcome was I aware they came back, and I'm not sure if they were evil or just upset. I will explain later. Only once did I see one clearly, but it happened in a split second, and I did not see it from top to bottom. I was walking through the breakfast room into the kitchen. The kitchen light was on in the corner. It was by the back door in front of the stove. I was startled. I thought someone had come into the house. It all happened very fast, but the light from behind it did not pass through as it would a shadow. It was short and stocky and appeared as a silhouette of a person. It had a head. There were no discernible features, including no eyes, shoulders, arms, and a torso. It disappeared too fast to take note if it had legs or feet. I sensed it was as surprised as I was and did not intend to be seen. Then our house caught fire. It was a major fire that started from a shorted TV along the wall of shadows in the den. We were out of the house 6 months while it was repaired. About a week after the fire, I stopped by right before dark to pick up a few things. As I came onto the back porch and looked through the 6-foot hole where the picture window once was, I looked across the breakfast room at the basement doorway. I sensed 3 shadows near the doorway. It was almost dark outside, so I did not actually see them. I also got a very bad feeling about them and told them by thought that the evil ones were still not welcome in the house whether I was there or not. Then I turned and left without entering the house. I was quite rattled. Whether I had this feeling because I was also emotionally upset about the fire, I cannot say. The next day, I went back and it seemed the house was full of shadows, although I only caught a glimpse of them as usual, fleeing in the basement. And I'm not sure I really saw them as there were no lights on down there and the only light was from the window well windows. It was the only time I ever sensed that they tried to communicate. It seemed they were upset that we were not there because the house was all black. There was no light for them in the kitchen, and there were strangers in the house, the workers, every day. A few weeks later, burglars tried to steal the new appliances for the house. Everything was left in the kitchen by the back door. My daughters and I joked that they met up with the shadows and were scared off. Who knows? Signed, Mike. A dashing shadow. When I was younger, I lived in a ranch-style home with my mom and grandma. My mom and I had chosen to have our rooms in the basement, hers in the back corner, and mine in a sectioned-off area of the main living room recreational area down there. Her bedroom was connected both to her bathroom and the main living area, the bathroom door being in her room and the door leading to the living area being catty-corner with a door that led to the bathroom from the main living area. One night in particular, I remember playing with my Legos. I was probably 9 or 10, but I happened to look up at my mom's bedroom door. As I looked through that door, it became more and more apparent that there was something there. It had no facial features and was nothing more than a silhouette of a small person with really swooshy hair. After about a minute of looking at this shadow, it dashed into the bathroom via the door directly connecting the bathroom and the bedroom. In disbelief, I continued playing with my Legos when I felt something staring at me. As I looked up, I couldn't believe my eyes. The same shadow was now standing directly in the bathroom doorway. Now, I know it had no face, much less eyes, but it was staring, watching, perhaps even waiting. It almost immediately sprinted into my mom's room, at which point I sprinted up the stairs, tears of fear running down my face. After that instant, I could never be alone in the basement at night, and my bedroom was moved to one of the spare rooms upstairs. I wish I could say that this was the last of my experiences, but alas, it is not. This same shadow person followed me to several different houses, including the one I'm in now. Signed, Anonymous. It called to me, and I answered. I'm not usually one to talk about my situation, as it happened about 14 years ago. And anyone that I have gone out of my way to share this with immediately put a lot of discredit upon the topic. My spouse and close friends have always been the most intrigued. Only had one occurrence that I recall the most, and the others did not have as much substance behind it as this one did. When I was 14, I was sharing the basement recreation area with my stepbrother at the time. My parents had spent time building me a room in the basement at my request, but lo and behold, I slept most of the time out on the playroom, or whatever you wanted to call it. I didn't start sleeping in my room till I was probably 16. However, this instance further confirmed why I didn't. It was between 2 and 4 a.m. I don't recall the exact time, but I had originally fallen asleep on the floor next to the futon my stepbrother was sleeping on. He faced the wall and was heavily snoring to boot. I'd woken up and couldn't fall directly back to sleep, so I tossed and turned while the ambience of the TV kept spreading around the basement. Out of nowhere, I became completely stiff and unable to move my entire body but my neck and head. At this point, feet point to the wall and the TV behind me. I started to look around because I had become immediately filled with anxiety and fear. I was thinking of this being sleep paralysis at the time, until the next step took place. I laid there in silence, heavy snoring from my left. It felt as if someone or something was sitting on my body, restraining me by the shoulders, which, due to claustrophobia issues, freaked me out. I heard a very faint voice at first in the distance. Josh, are you there? I know you're there. Eyes peeled wide open, trying to diagnose me being crazy at this point. It then spoke again. Josh, can you hear me? I know you can hear me. Come to your bedroom. I continued to try and ignore it as I felt I was about to puke. I was becoming really scared. In a much louder, gruffer voice, it spoke to me again. Josh, I know you can hear me. Come to your bedroom. As if the biggest weight was off my body, I was immediately able to move, and I sat up in a split second and rose to my feet. This voice continued to call my name and demand my presence in my room. Like any unoriginal horror movie, I was pleading with my brain to not do it, but stupid me decided to make way to the bedroom. The door always remained shut, and as I put my hand on the doorknob, I hear it one more time. Josh, are you coming? Open the door. As I opened the door, I had a small basement window, at the time big enough to sneak out of the house, parallel to the doorway. As I slowly creaked open the door in a cold sweat, there was what appeared to be a dim-lit yellow eye shapes in the window in the shape of some sort of dark figure staring deep into my soul. Wide-eyed and terrified, I looked up and was locked on for about 30 seconds. They got brighter and became dim, and then repeated. I slammed the door immediately and bolted to the other end of the basement for the light and proceeded to rock back and forth because there was no explanation. My brother woke up in a panic as I was petrified. We went back in the room together and turned the light on, and nothing was there. Nothing was outside as we went and checked further. He stayed up with me for a bit until I fell back asleep, and nothing like that occurred again. I cannot advise whom, why, where, or what, but it has left the biggest impact on me to this day. I know the difference between dreaming and being in an altered state of mind, but this was the most real I have ever felt behind a paranormal episode. That voice makes my body tingle and hair on my arms raise every time I think about it. I feel good knowing that I'm not completely alone in this type of thing, and all I can do is hold on to the memory, as nothing has been explained or uncovered otherwise. Signed, Josh.
All right, Tales Untold Missing Person Mystery. Shout out to Steve Stockton for being a part of the show like he is. Awesome, awesome stories. And once again, sad stories, right? Because these people are missing. In most of these cases that we hear Steve talk about are accounts of those who have not been returned. Some of them, the stories are returned. Most of them are not. And you just got to think about that. How many people go missing in the United States every single year? I was blown away at the number. I didn't realize it was actually that high. We're talking like, and I want to say in the range of, which was still bananas to me here in the United States alone, like 600,000 to 800,000 people. That is crazy. That is an insane amount of people which that those get reported, right? Obviously a lot of them show back up eventually or are found at some point, whether intact or not intact, and then some of those never find their way back, and that's the scary part about it, because then you have to wonder why, right? Unless there was an unaliver out there that was so on top of their game that remains would never be found. That's still a very, very small, minute number, would explain the small, minute number of those ones that are still not solved at this point. And you'd have to think that there has to be more going on than just human involvement. And that's kind of where we start jumping down the rabbit hole and figure, yeah, they're getting abducted by Bigfoot, extraterrestrials. Maybe they're stepping into the little people's world. We hear stories about the little people, the fairies, the fae, right? From what it sounds like, there's a lot more in those forests to be worried about than coyotes and wolves, gray wolves and grizzly bears and mountain lions and cougars, things of that nature. They're definitely and that's why with these Sasquatch and Bigfoot stories, with these Sasquatch and Bigfoot stories, I can tell you, I've looked in the eyes of people who have told these stories and just felt they saw something, right? Not sure what it was, but they saw something that scared them to the core, shook them to the core. And I've been in the woods at night, and I would not doubt for a moment that there are things out there. I'm talking about when you can go in the woods and you can't see 5 feet in front of your face, 10 feet. and then that's because there's no light getting in there, so it's like you're in outer space, like you're in pitch black darkness, or you're just in something that's heavily vegetative, right? Where everything is so dense that you can't, in that case, you can't see more than 10 feet in front of you. So very scary place to be. Wouldn't recommend it to anyone, as well as the rainforest or the jungle. Anything that got forest in it or jungle, probably not a good place to go get lost. And that's what I'll say here. And I'm gonna answer a couple questions here, as normally there would be someone stepping in right now, but that didn't happen. So we're gonna do a couple different things here this evening and make it do what it do, because that's what we do best. In the studio, what if we lived on the holodeck? Lots of things lately seen off, and would we know if we were in a simulation? And that's what I was asking the guest. Because it's where does simulation theory then kind of merge in with banking on historical writings, because you would think in a simulation world, right, where this has all been created, everything we see around us. Some people will say that the room that you walk into doesn't load up until you actually walk into that room. It's technically not there. You've heard people say that before. And so I would think that when we're talking about simulation theory, that the fact that it's simulation or code would be able to determine or dictate if you or have the ability to rewrite the code in a way that then alters the historical written data. Because I would think it would immediately affect that. Or you could never depend on the historical data, because it could be changed at any moment, right? Like the Wikipedia page, it could be rewritten in a way that doesn't align with what you knew before. Now, that would make sense for the Mandela effect, right? And that's kind of why people use maybe simulation theory to kind of connect to the Mandela effect, because you have examples of historical things potentially changing or being altered or not being remembered exactly in the same light as other people remember it. So, but I don't know. Once again, that's where you ask the questions, and it you get the answers, and then it's up to our viewers to kind of, at the end of the day, take the data, process it in a way that you feel is appropriate, and use it or don't. Right? That's what this is all about. That's why we get together. We have these conversations, because we don't know the answers. We don't have the data. So therefore, if someone's walking in the room as we're sitting here at this huge table with a million puzzle pieces on it, and we're trying to figure out where this piece goes, and they have the ability to guide us at least to a portion of the puzzle that we should be focusing on, then that's where getting outside data is helpful in how it helps, and it kind of shows where we would be or where we're trying to go as a team, essentially, right? Because I guess that's what we could be looked at. If we're all doing this for the benefit of the next person, then we are doing it for us, right? Which means that everyone's conversation is important. Theories and ideas. I've heard theories that I've never heard before thinking out this thing, right? I've heard some brand new ones that are just like, wow, okay, that's new. That's new. And I think at the very least, if it's plausible, if it can fit, if it could potentially fit a perspective, doesn't mean it's the only perspective, but it does mean that it does work out somehow. You get those puzzle pieces that are really, really close, but they just don't fit flush. So it's not the right one, but it's pretty dang close. So you know what now to look for, the same type of piece, right? It's a metaphor for what we're doing and what we're going through and how we're moving ourselves through this moment and why we have these conversations. And it's a reminder, like I always say, when you host these shows and you have these conversations, you hear a lot of information. You can't allow yourself to be swayed one way or the other. You have to recalibrate yourself at the end of the day, because the only way that you will remain effective in a conversation is if you stay in the middle of the road and that you are open to data being provided from both sides of the conversation, almost like a mediator, right? Who's not biased to one particular side. A mediator is going to, be pretty straightforward when processing the information that they get, and not going to hold, a bias for one particular side or not. So that's why I do this, and want to spend some time talking about that, as we had nothing but time as we went ahead and ended Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries, which once again we want to thank him for. And we're going to actually get ready to go in to the final break of the night, right? As I wrap things up, filling in for Dave Scott, trying out some new things with the audience, and you guys have given me awesome feedback. We will continue to make tweaks and raise the bar and do what we do here on this end. You guys just show up. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, notification bell. As long as you're here, that works out. We're going to take this last break, though. Thanks for listening to me speak. We'll be right back, though. Last 30 minutes. It's going to be fire. Maybe do Unapologetically Mr. Rob G, because I still have some things on my mind that I do want to talk about. And it could get spicy. Make sure you come back right after the break. All right, guys. All right, we are clear and we are on our final break. Yeah. So let me go ahead and go through the chat here, see what we have. Anybody else adding to any combo out here? And I appreciate you guys keeping it respectful too tonight. When we have tough conversations, sometimes, as I was saying with the guest, sometimes emotional strings get tugged and heartstrings, and just sometimes you respond based on emotion. And I just really appreciate you guys handling it the way that you did tonight. And I got your messages. And just know that. And everything's all good. Everything's good to go. Everything is good to go. And actually, let me get something set up here. How do I want to do this here? All right, give me 1 second here, guys. Trying to do something on the back end. All right. Appreciate you, Area 51. Rob G, you're the man to go, bringing the heat, never sleep. You know, I promised to you, Area 51, that we would always continue to bring the heat and never to sleep. Ever since you created the term, that's the bar, right? That's the minimum bar, right? We got to at least bring the heat, never to sleep. Hopefully, a lot more than that when we do these shows. And it's because these shows are so important. Like, it's not, if I'm doing a show about, there's a million things in the world you could do a show about. You can do a show about sports, you could do a show about music, you could do a show about pottery, about plants, gardening, DIY. And I do all those things. I actually do, but this thing right here that we're doing is so important to the future of humanity. This is what needs to be done, right? And so it's just always awesome to be able to speak in a moment where, humanity really needs to, we're really all trying to figure out what to do at the same time. It's like an amazing moment that we're just lucky to be alive in, truthfully. That's just how I see it. And we got about 45 seconds left here before we come back. $30 seconds. Joe Monk asking really quick, got 15 seconds. What's the most haunted place you've been to in Bakersfield, Rob? There is a hotel, the Padre Hotel, which actually I have to pass every night that I come here to this studio, and I might be doing that. There's a room on the 7th floor, something like that. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, After Hour number 3. After Hour radio show edition. I always have to remind myself to say that because I also have to say I'm filling in for Dave Scott, just so in case you didn't know, like, hey, where's Dave? Filling in for Dave Scott, bringing some of that After Hours flavor to the show tonight. Don't forget, awesome conversation earlier, though controversial. If you missed any of it, hop in the archive, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. And what I want to do here, I had whipped something up a while back, and I'm still working on this stuff, right? I'm everything we do is live. Even pretty much 95%, actually 98% of everything I do on my own channel is also live. And it's live is a great thing though, because you're in the moment, right? And you have to put on a good show. It's like you don't have a choice. You can't go cut and rewind and do your takeover. You have to be able to work in the moment and maximize the moment. There is no going back, right? So I've been kicking around just some short form stuff, and because there are a lot of stories to be told in this community, and I kind of just wanted to get into some of the short form content. So I just whipped up one, which is 5 times that that aliens may have actually attempted contact with us. And it was a big thing. It was just, when I'm doing it, I'm sitting there thinking, like, these are legitimately 5 times where, as much as we beg for the White House lawn, the alien to land on the White House lawn, get out, shake hands, or we look back at the Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie, where at the end the spaceship opens up and all the grays come off and they welcome Dreyfus onto the ship, and we likely probably have already experienced that multiple times, not just multiple times, but multiple times in the last 40, 50 years, right? So I went ahead and put something together. I want to go ahead and show, because we'll do this and then we'll spend the rest of the night, which will be about 10 additional minutes, getting into some unapologetically Mr. Rob G, because I still got something on my mind that I would like to talk about. And we're going to do that. So here we go. Let me bring this up. Hopefully no commercials come up, because I'm not rich. I don't got premium like all y'all out there. All right, let's go ahead and do this. Make sure that the volume is on for you guys. And radio, you guys will definitely be able to hear this as well. Humans have reported throughout history, humans have reported encounters with unexplained aerial phenomena, objects defying known physics, massive silent craft, and interactions suggesting attempts at communication. While skeptics often attribute these incidents to misidentifications or mass hysteria, others believe they represent genuine attempts at contact from unknown intelligences. Today, we delve into 5 significant UFO events where something, perhaps extraterrestrial, seemed to be reaching out. From schoolyards to major cities, these incidents have left witnesses and researchers alike with more questions than answers. Number 1, the Ariel School UFO encounter. The tranquility of the playground was disrupted when approximately 60 children observed a bright silver object descending from the sky. The object reportedly landed or hovered just above the ground in a bushy area adjacent to the schoolyard. The children described the craft as a large, shiny silver disc. Some noted a red light or a ring around its edge. More astonishingly, they reported seeing one or more beings near the object. These entities were described as small in stature, approximately 4 feet tall, with disproportionately large heads and massive black oval-shaped eyes. They wore tight-fitting, shiny black clothing. One student recounted, "I felt like he was warning us about the environment, about the future." Another described, "We saw this like silver thing down there. It was a silver oval thing that flew away really slowly." The children's accounts were remarkably consistent, despite being interviewed separately. Noted Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John E. Mack traveled to Zimbabwe to interview the witnesses and found their testimonies credible. The incident remains one of the most compelling UFO encounters with no definitive explanation to date. Number 2, the Westall School UFO incident. Over 200 students and teachers witnessed a metallic, saucer-like craft hovering above the school's yard. The object moved erratically, sometimes darting in ways that defied conventional flight patterns. Suddenly, it descended into a nearby area known as the Grange, a patch of open land adjacent to the school. Students who raced to the scene described a circular craft about the size of a car resting on the ground. Some noted that it had a hump on top and round features underneath. Before anyone could get closer, the object rapidly ascended and disappeared from view. In the aftermath, military personnel and men in dark suits arrived quickly, instructing witnesses to remain silent. Some reports suggest that authorities confiscated photographs taken by students. The event was minimally covered in the media, with explanations ranging from weather balloons to mass hysteria. However, no conclusive explanation has been provided. The consistency of witnesses' accounts, coupled with the swift response from authorities, has led many to believe that this was a significant event. Decades later, witnesses stand by their stories, and the incident remains unexplained, fueling speculation about a possible cover-up. Number 3, the Phoenix Lights. Thousands of people across Nevada and Arizona reported seeing a massive V-shaped formation of lights moving silently across the sky. The formation was enormous, with estimates suggesting it spanned over a mile in length. Witnesses described it as blocking out stars as it passed overhead. Observers recounted a series of amber orbs aligned in a V-shaped formation gliding silently. Some reported seeing a solid structure connecting the lights, while others perceived them as individual entities moving in unison. The event lasted for several hours, with sightings reported between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. The U.S. Air Force later explained the lights as flares dropped during training exercises at the Berry Goldwater Range. However, this explanation contradicted many eyewitness accounts, which described a structured craft rather than separate descending lights. The Phoenix Lights remains one of the most well-documented witnessed UFO events in history. The disparity between official explanations and witness testimonies has led to ongoing debates and investigations, with no consensus reached to this day. Number 4, UFOs over Washington, D.C. Radar operators at Washington National Airport and other nearby facilities detected unidentified objects moving in restricted airspace over the White House and the Capitol. These objects exhibited extraordinary speeds and maneuverability, prompting immediate concern. Pilots and radar operators described luminous orbs and fast-moving lights that would appear suddenly, change direction abruptly, and vanish from sight. Fighter jets were scrambled to intercept, but the objects seemed to evade pursuit effortlessly. The Air Force held a press conference, the largest since World War II, attributing the sightings to temperature inversions causing radar anomalies. However, this explanation did not satisfy many, given the visual confirmations by pilots and radar operators. The 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incidents remain a significant chapter in UFO history. The combination of radar detections, visual sightings, and the proximity to the nation's political heart has led to continued intrigue and speculation about the nature of these unidentified objects. Number 5, the New Jersey drone phenomenon. The drones were described as being as large as SUVs, emitting loud humming noises and flying in groups over residential areas and near sensitive locations, including military installations and critical infrastructure. The sheer number and size of these drones led to widespread public concern and media coverage. Witnesses across multiple counties reported seeing formations of drones flying at low altitudes. Some described them as having a bright, flashing lights and moving in synchronized patterns. The sightings were consistent over several weeks, with reports peaking in early December and into January. The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, imposed temporary flight restrictions over critical infrastructure areas in New Jersey, citing security concerns. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security launched investigations, urging the public to report any suspicious drone activity. Despite extensive efforts, officials were unable to identify the operators of the drones, leading to widespread speculation and theories about their origin. So ask yourself, were these some top secret government craft? Were these prosaic, explainable objects? Or more likely, were these 5 times that aliens may have attempted to make contact with humanity? Leave a comment and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Yeah, that was likely. I don't know how you feel. But likely that would have been 5 times that extraterrestrials attempted contact. Think about it. Aerial school in front of all those kids, broad daylight, landed, got out the craft. Many witnesses. They all drew the same thing. Okay, just that event alone, that's like one of my top events right there. But that event alone showed the want for making contact. That's what that was all about. Westall School, essentially the same thing happened, almost 30 years prior to aerial school, but same situation, but even more kids, like 250 kids and adults that saw that incident. And you have to ask yourself, why would you show up not way off in the sky somewhere for everybody to see, but right there, like literally right in front of you? In the aerial school, one thing I always bring up that I didn't really know until the Aerial School Phenomena documentary came out by Randall Nickerson, when one of the kids who had grown up, I think Emily, it could have been one of the other kids though, mentioned how close they were to these beings, and they were not like a stone's throw away. If you go back and watch, they said they were like 2 meters. We're talking about within arm's reach of the beings in those cases. So those are definitely cases that look like contact was trying to be made. Phoenix Lights was the third one. Obviously, that went on for an extended period of time over a city where everybody saw it. I think it got up into the thousands in that case. The UFOs over DC, which is the nation capital. So to put on a display from July 12th to July 29th, what is that, 2.5 weeks? That was clear that they were attempting to do something. And then most recently, the New Jersey drone situation, regardless how you want to look at that or what you think that was, it still is, if you were to believe Ross Coulthart, because he says it's still going on. That again, if even a portion of that is anomalous, of a portion of the number of objects we saw were anomalous, they still were there for a period of 2 months strong, every day, like clockwork. Don't you feel like if that was anomalous, then that again was a time that they attempted to make contact? So have they tried numerous times to make contact, and we're just sitting here like, oh, we don't really know what to do. We're going to ignore what's going on. We're going to ignore the obvious display of and the unspoken action of wanting to interact over the last 50 years. I don't know, but I thought that was definitely compelling. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap this thing up. We got about 5 minutes left, and I'll spend that with some unapologetic, because when it's on your heart, it's on your heart, right? So unapologetically, Mr. Rob G. And this is just, me speaking from the heart and just telling you how it is. So I got into ufology as far as on the hosting end of this. It's been a couple years now. I've talked to skeptics, non-skeptics behind the scenes before ever coming to SOR. And I was told by some people how this community is. And not just the general community, not like the chat or anything like that, but just how players in this community are. And I made some statements when I first came in, and it was, I saw people not being friends with each other, and I just couldn't understand it. I'm like, you know what? We are all on the same team. We are trying to get to the same goal. How is there at all any time for anyone to have an issue with another person within this community? Like, how does that even happen? Where does that type of energy come from? If you're in this to get to getting answers and getting to a similar goal as other people within this community, how is there ever a time for high school antics? I never thought that it would be this way. But I'll tell you, the more and more time that you end up spending in the community, the more this stuff starts to rear its head. And it's like, it feels like high school again, right? It feels like high school games. I had a goal at one point prior to coming to SOR, to kind of unify the community, like unite people in the community, because I looked at what was going on as just really silly and a waste of time and nothing that was going to be beneficial to get the answers. And why can't people just get along and be friends? And I was told at that time that is comes from a good place, obviously. Like a good person would want to see those outcomes, but was made aware that something like that to happen would be considered pie in the sky. And I couldn't put my finger on why that would be the case. And, I hadn't seen any examples of it, right, going at that time. So the further you go into it, and then things start to happen, right? So we have a political shift here in the United States, something that kind of divided the citizens of the country. Just keeping it real, just really divided citizens of the country. But what it also did is it gave you a moment to peek into everyone's reality, because a lot of people were talking about how they felt and were expressing how they felt. And you found out, okay, I have people right next to me that I consider friends that back up racist views and racist outlooks, right? And in this community, I don't think racism, it does exist, but I don't think that it should, or there shouldn't be room for it, because the goal that we are trying to get to does not respond or racism has no place for where we're trying to go. But quickly realized that there were some people maybe that I had allowed to get too close, that maybe in the end of the day really didn't have the best interest at heart. So you learn lessons, but it's like the more you're going in, now I see, there's segments of this community that want to play games. Now there's segments of the communities that feel like, oh, you're doing all this stuff, you're doing all these shows. I want to be jealous of what you're doing. And I'm like, that's not what I'm in it for. I'm not in it for my own ego. I'm not in this to say I'm doing a show, that I host the show. An awesome show, by the way. If you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. but I do this for everyone else, for the benefit of humanity. And I'm just seeing things that people called out for me early on. And you have to tread lightly in this community. I never thought I would be sitting here saying this, but people that appear to be your friends aren't your friends. They want what you have. They want to step in the shoes that you wear. And it's sad. And this isn't probably anyone you guys know, but I know the person that I might be speaking to understands exactly what I'm talking about. And that's me being unapologetically Mr. Rob G tonight. I want to thank our guest, Jason Brashier, for coming on in and being awesome tonight. Also, I want to thank Steve Stockton, Tells Untold Misperson Mysteries, as always, for the hour 3. I want to thank Mr. Rob G for being unapologetic tonight and really adding some value to the program, Speaking the Heart. I also want to thank the guy that you hear right there, right now, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Dahl, the man that rocks us in and out of each and every show, teaches us, he tells us, never say never again. Reason why? Because the phenomenon is real. It's definitely real. And because of that, anything and everything underneath that is possible. If you enjoyed the show tonight, if you enjoyed tough conversation, having your mind challenged, go ahead and hit that like button. Also throw your horns up. We appreciate you tuning your frequency right here to Spaced Out Radio. We do what we do best. We own the night. This show is copyright SOR Media Ventures Limited, Spaced Out Radio. It's been a pleasure serving you as your host, standing in while Dave is out. This is the After Hours Radio Show edition of Spaced Out Radio. I'm Mr. Rob G. And to all you space travelers out there, each and every one of you guys watching, listening right now, this isn't a goodbye nor a farewell. However, you can best believe as we go off air for the night, we're going to be back right here doing the same thing again and again and again. Same time, same place. Much love to everybody out there. Have a great rest of your night. Take care. Clear, 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 clear. We go ahead and fill this out real quick. I'm not going to be around for long tonight. Yeah, much love to everybody out there too. As we get unapologetically Rob G tonight, and yeah, let's put a lot more love out there, less hate, and let's do it for the kiddos, man. Let's do it for our children. Let's do it for our grandkids. But I'll tell you what, you learn who your friends are. You learn who your friends are fast in this space. You do. But more importantly, you learn who your friends aren't. Try to make sure I don't write anything wrong on this before I upload it, guys. So it's taking my attention away for a moment. Let me see, what is this? Almost done. All right, that is uploading. That is uploading, and all right, let me look at the chat here. Usually I'm out of here by now. Let me see. Appreciate the love and support out there too. This is it's just, it's gonna take more energy. It's gonna take more energy to get where we need to go out here, man. Right? I mean, we talk about racism, all this stuff. We know that's out in the community, but the last thing you would suspect is to see it in your circle. That's the part where that's the mind-blowing part. As you get a rude awakening to someone you may share a laugh with, or share a drink with, or just spend any time with, and just to see, where that person, where their heart really lies. And it's like, ugh. Yeah. Who's asked, do we have to kick Rob? You know what, Joe? No one's. We just need to hug. We need to hug people. That's what, and some people might need hugs, and that might be really what it is at the end of the day. That person might need a hug. Who knows what's going on in their personal life to where they feel the way that they feel. And that's kind of how I look at it. Because you gotta be the one willing to step out there and initiate the good experience, right? The good interaction with the world. Because if you count on other people to do it for you, you'll find yourself in a lot of situations where people didn't want to do the work. So you kill them with kindness, you kill them with love, and if they're in that miserable place, if that's where they live, that's where they'll continue to live, and it just sometimes you gotta talk about it. You can't not talk about it. Sometimes you gotta talk about it, obviously, without naming names or doing any of the messy stuff. You're able to get stuff off your chest, and then that person knows who they are, so they hopefully, if they have any conscience or morals as a human being, then they feel like a POS. And I don't, that's just how I feel about it. But it ain't none of you guys out there. So just best believe I love all you guys. You ain't got to worry about it. It's all good. We want retribution all the time. That's what we want. J True Seeker, exactly, Rob G. And the Sasquatches agree. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. It's love. It's all love. It's all love. You guys are awesome. We're going to keep making this thing move. We're going to keep having conversations to move the needle. And if jealousy is out there and jealousy, attempts to kind of shadow or shade what it is that we're doing, we're just going to keep doing it. And we're going to keep doing it better. And we're going to keep raising the bar. And that's what we're going to do. So with that being said, this is a great time to rock out to our closing song here, Retribution, because we do want retribution. They've been holding the secret back for 80 years at least. Then not only do you have to wade through that mud, you also have to deal with people who are supposed to be in your support area, looking at you with the side eye and putting bad energy on you, bad juju. So this is definitely a time to rock out to the closing theme song. And that's what we're going to do. As I get ready to get up out of here, you guys be safe tonight. I'm going to try to do the same. You guys all take care.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.